Today is November 12th. This is the Select Committee or the Committee Task Force on Child Abuse Investigation Processes. It is now 10:15 or 10:14 a.m. Madam Secretary, if you would please call the roll.
Senator Barrow.
Here.
Present. Dr. Birch. Judge present. Judge Green. Judge Guillory. Present. Ms. Hadley. Present. Mr. Hanneman. Present. Dr. Hook. Present. Ms. Moody. Present. Captain Patu. Present. Honorable Russell. Ms. Shelton. Present. Captain Sanji. Dr. St. Germain. Present. Dr. Thurber. Present. Ms. Wascom. Present. We have 12 members present.
Thank you so much, Madam Secretary. This committee does not require that we have a quorum, so therefore we are able to transact and do business accordingly. I have misplaced my notes. If y'all could, did I leave them down there? You have them? No? Okay. Well, we're going to see if we can remember this all by memory. Please silence your cell phones. If you have to take a call, we will ask that you please step outside of the room to take that call. If you would like to give a testimony, this is a committee where we are providing information only. So we will ask you to fill out the white card and give it to the Sergeant at Arms. Please be aware that any personal information that you give on this card is subject to public disclosure. In addition to that, here are just some other notes and information that I would like to give to everyone. We are going to include today on our agenda, are going to continue to include information regarding pre-kindergarten programs that falls under the new Charlie's Law. Unfortunately, since our last meeting, 2 pre-kindergarten programs that falls within the new law have filed a suit against the state to block the law. I'm not going to get into the weeds about the litigation, and I choose to remove those schools from the agenda today. I was actively collaborating and working with the schools for a smooth transition, but they have chose a different path through the courts. I will say that LDH is working on actually creating the rulemaking process that would exempt the schools and some of the complaints that they made in the lawsuit from having to comply with the current law until session. However, we are where we are. We will continue to move forward. And you do have a copy of the agenda today. In addition to hearing from law enforcement, we do have the secretary coming from the Department of Children and Family Services, OTS, and we are also going to take up the CACs. So with that, we will officially go ahead and start the meeting. And we are now going to ask, and I forgot to mention, I am just so proud of the work that the AG office is doing as it relates to child investigation, predators, et cetera. We do have joining us Mr. Chris Masters with the Office of the Attorney General to provide us with an update, to answer questions. Many of you may have seen many of the arrests that they have been making, how they've been working with law enforcement to get these predators off the street and off the internet with our children. So if you would please introduce yourself and give us an update.
Good morning. Chris Masters with the Attorney General's Office. I'm a supervisory special agent over the ICAC division. I'm the operations commander for ICAC, for the Attorney General's Office. Just to give you a little bit of background, when I started in this division roughly 2 years ago, we had 8 law enforcement partners as a part of ICAC throughout the state of Louisiana. We now have over 60 law enforcement agencies that are partnered with us, including prosecutorial agencies. That way, we're all on the same page going forward. Everybody's receiving the same type of training to where we understand how to work these cases together. That way, it doesn't matter which jurisdiction we're in, the case is presented the same way. We took what was successful and taught it to our partners and said, hey, this is how we're being successful. This is how we're getting convictions of sex offenders. And a lot of these partner agencies have taken that and have stepped up further than what we initially taught them. Some of them have gone to a lot of proactive investigations. You'll see the Livingston Sheriff's Office is one of them that puts out, I think, a press release every 2 days about 10 people. And it's not because that there's that many sexual predators in Livingston. It's because they're getting them there from wherever they're from. I've seen them have guys travel from Little Rock, Arkansas in one day to come meet who they think is a 13 or 14-year-old child. And then they've also intermingled ICAC with the sex offender registry. So what I can tell you is, from a sex offender registry standpoint and an ICAC standpoint, sex offenders have to do certain things as part of their requirements to register. Well, we get tips that are related to certain items, and I'm not going to say what those certain items are, but we can reference the sex offender registry and see if this tip is related to somebody who's already a registered sex offender. And that's something that Sheriff Ard and his people kind of took on, and they were the first agency to do it. And now it's expanding throughout the state to where, and I'm going to be honest, I don't hold back when I say we want to put as much pressure on registered sex offenders as we can in the state of Louisiana, and eventually get them to stop what they're doing, which is highly unlikely, or get them to move out of the state of Louisiana. I'm sorry for the other states, but I want it to be their problem and not our problem. One of the other things that we've had, I can tell you so far this year, as of September 5th of this year, we have exceeded last year's total numbers for tips that come in from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. As of September 5th, we are over that number. We are sitting roughly around 22,000 tips for the state of Louisiana related to child exploitation in some manner. Now, that is not always representative of a child, but it could be. So the goal was to develop stronger partnerships with all law enforcement to work for that common goal, right? So our common goal is make sure that a kid is safe. And everybody is receiving the same amount of training on it, so we can address more of these tips now that we have more sheriff's offices, more law enforcement agencies engaged with us working these types of crimes. Thus far this year, we've rescued over 40 children from ongoing sexual abuse as a task force. That was not known to law enforcement prior to us receiving the tip, right? So this comes from a tip. We see videos or we see images, and our analysts may look at it and say, hey, we think that may be a video that's being made locally. And we run on those immediately, or our partners run on those immediately, and that's where we're at. We're over 40. We have identified over 70 child victims that were unknown prior to our investigations for the state of Louisiana. At this point, I think we're over, as a task force, 400 arrests for the year of these guys. And we have some upcoming things that are going to be taking place within the next couple of months to really address some of our areas in the state that are high volume, high numbers. We will be doing a joint task force in the Orleans metro area very soon, and we're going to address those numbers. And I think going into next year, you're going to see, the numbers that I've checked, I think we'll be able to probably, as a group down there, make between 200 to 300 arrests a year in the Orleans metro area. And that's obviously, with those arrests, we're also going to add to child victim rescues and identification of children that were not known prior to. Part of that program also that we have is the educational side. We've seen I've been in law enforcement 21 years. We're never going to arrest our way out of a problem. We have to educate as well. So part of our program is we deliver the educational tools to our partners. They develop a program that works for their jurisdiction, and they deliver it in their schools. On Monday, I spoke at Ascension Christian in Ascension Parish. And we want these kids to understand that they can come to law enforcement if they make a mistake. Our mistakes when we were kids didn't get spread across the internet. They all have access from the time that they're 4 years old on. And the parents and the schools need to be engaged and understand what's happening, because there's not enough law enforcement to go around. So part of that program is putting that education into the school systems to where these kids know that they have a resource, including the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. If they don't want to tell their parents, if they don't want, because they're ashamed, they can anonymously report what's going on the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's website, and it will send us the lead, and we can go after the offender without ever having to talk to the child. So it can keep them safe and keep them anonymous, but also give us a lead on somebody that may be victimizing multiple children, 20, 30, 40 children, because it's that easy. Before, when you just had to drive your candy van, you could target one child at a time. Well, now you can have as many kids as you want. And one of the things I tell parent groups is, if I was going to tell you, as far as parents being, I don't want to be too strict on my kid and what they're doing. And look, that's out the window. You have to be. If I invited your child to a party and I said the guest list is comprised of 100 sex offenders, would you let your kid come to that party? And everybody's answer is no. Well, that's what you're doing when you allow them unvetted access to the internet, because you don't know who's in those rooms. And I can assure you that these guys are better than anyone else at manipulation. And they will find the one thing that these kids are not happy with themselves about, and they will exploit that to get them to believe that they're going to be their boyfriend, and then we end up with a situation where a child is in Pittsburgh. So we're doing our best. We're putting our training out there. We're open to all affiliates, any partners. If you're on our task force, we have free training. We pay for everything. It's at our office. We're actually hosting one today at our office where local law enforcement is coming and getting training. That way we're all on the same page moving forward about how we attack these problems.
Thank you so much. I cannot sing the accolades of this department enough. I remember when we first encountered you guys through the Women's Caucus, and you and David Ferris showed up, and you was kind of like a two-man operation. Is it still a two-man operation? Lord have mercy, we got to get them help, because y'all are doing some amazing work with just the two of you. And so there are a couple of questions that I have here. First of all, do you guys kind of reach out to grandparent groups? I would like to really suggest that, because as a grandparent who now I'm looking at everything totally different, probably almost to a point of paranoia with my daughter, because she's like, "Oh God, Mama, please," and I'm like, "No," because the more I have learned, I see how quickly things can happen. Because she'll go let my grandson, who is 10, walk to his friend's house in the neighborhood, and I'm going like, "No, that is not a good idea anymore," because you don't know who lives in the neighborhood. And she's like, "But the house is right there," and right there. And her definition and my definition were totally different, because he does go around a corner that you cannot see to get to the friend's house. And so, that was a big blowout between she and I. But, I think definitely like grandparents raising grandchildren. I don't know if you guys have spoken to them. The Council on Aging, I don't know if they've reached out to you. I would highly recommend, if y'all have not done that, to really reach out to those groups, because we are just so unaware. All the stuff that they are introduced on the phone, the technology. I walked in my other grandson's room and I could hear somebody talking to him, and I'm like, "Who are you talking to?" But he was talking to somebody through the game system. So that was alarming for me. So if you could just kind of share some insight on that would be great.
Sure. Any civic groups, any parent groups, anything, we're willing to speak to them. And that's why we're having to push out to our partners the same program. We all have the same basis for the program. They can obviously tailor it to their own sheriff's office or law enforcement agency, but it's the same basis for everything. So any groups that are wanting a presentation, they can contact their local law enforcement. I have pretty much every sheriff's office. I think I'm down to like 5 sheriff's offices now, and that's just because I'm only one person, and I still have to set those meetings. But pretty much the entire state is covered by some form of law enforcement, where they can put that program out, or they can contact our office, and we will deliver that program to anybody. And I agree with you. I actually, Sheriff Lewis in St. James Parish invited me, and I spoke with he had the Council on Aging out there. He had a big event for them, and I spoke to all of them about it, because there's a lot of grandparents that are raising, and we don't have an idea what these kids know on there. So I can imagine it's 10 times harder for a grandparent to understand what's going on with these devices. I mean, a 3-year-old can operate one of these systems better than what I can.
And I know that you can't go into any details about the young lady that you guys got out of Pittsburgh, but she actually resided in my district. And so when I first heard it, I was alarmed. Just the whole testament of her being rescued in a box, and I don't know how much you can share, but I was concerned, and I don't know all the details, the family dynamics, things of that sort. But if there's anything that you can share about that, or let me ask it this way: is there a time of the year where you see a higher tick of this happening, or is it just any time of the year?
I mean, it's fairly regular throughout the year. Numbers
Okay.
are fairly same. However, in the summertime, you obviously see a little bit of increase because there's a lot of children at home by themselves while the parents are working. And nowadays, it requires two parents to be working. It's not like it was before where somebody was at home with the kids at all times. They're pretty much living for themselves throughout the day. And unvetted access to the internet, there's no telling what they can come up with. So we do see an increase in those types of things in the summer times, but I wouldn't say it's that drastic to really be able to do something differently than what we're doing now.
And you mentioned that you guys are in partnership with how many agencies now?
We have over 60.
60, okay. And all these are law enforcement, or these are various?
So we have, the majority of those are law enforcement, but we do have partnerships with prosecutorial agencies. When I say over 60, I'm speaking specifically on law enforcement agencies, but we do have partnerships with prosecutorial agencies as well.
And the increase that y'all have seen from last year to this year, do you believe that's because more people are now more aware of what to look for, or is it that the information is more readily accessible? What do you contribute that to?
I would say, I mean, it's kind of twofold. We're putting more education out about, hey, this is how you reach out and get help if you're a child. So that's being delivered to these children. We're seeing a lot more children actually self-report on these things.
Oh, that's good.
Again, I know I've said Livingston Sheriff's Office a lot. Livingston Sheriff's Office has come up with a pamphlet essentially for their Uniform Patrol Division that if they respond to a call of this nature, they give it to the parents of the child, and it's tips and guidelines of what they can do, how they go to NCMEC to report a tip, what types of things they need to do, educational resources. Everything is on this pamphlet that they have come up with, and it's delivered to all their Uniform Patrol deputies who then give it to everyone on those calls that they respond to.
Wow, are they the only ones who, and I want to give them a shout out as well, because I have seen the difference with that department, and I want to commend Sheriff Art on that. Do you happen to have that, or?
I don't, but I can get it.
Okay.
And I think,
Yes, Senator, I think Livingston is coming for that.
so Captain Bowden, if he is speaking today, he's your point of contact for that, and he can definitely get that for you. There he is.
Oh, there he is.
See that? That's how well
He
we
has
work
magically
together.
appeared.
That's so yeah, they do an excellent job, and
That's
this
great.
is something that I would like to see pushed throughout the. I would like to see that pushed throughout the state to all of our law enforcement,
I think this is wonderful.
and it gives those parents at least a resource of what do we do now? You know, how do we get the help? And obviously, we're incorporating those victim advocates as well when we have a true victim, and doing the most we can for the victims. That's the most important part of it. Is it's not just arresting the offender. We now have to think about how is this victim going to recover from this. There's going to be
Yes.
mental health, physical health. I mean everything that they're going to need that they're going to require moving forward.
Yes, I thought about that with the 13-year-old in terms of what happens next. Okay, Representative Edmiston, thank you for being here, Rep.
Thank you. I'm sorry I was late as usual. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Doing.
Congratulations on the work you do with all of your colleagues. It's amazing.
Thank you.
This doesn't necessarily have to do with exactly what we're talking about, but the child in Lafourche, have you heard about that? The 13-year-old that's 8th grade,
Yes.
the AI?
Yes.
What in the world?
Yeah. It's. We have a law in the books for it.
Describe for the panel what we're talking about. They may not know.
So if you haven't heard about this, it's essentially a child at a school was creating AI-generated child sexual abuse material. This past session, it changed where we're not calling it pornography involving juveniles. It's now child sexual abuse material, because pornography involving juveniles essentially sounds like you want to be involved. And the reality of it is these are children being raped, so they don't want to be involved. We also have unlawful deepfakes, which is one of these students at this school took photos, real photos of a child that they went to school with and made them nude, turned them using AI. That's another front that we're going to have to battle coming forward. Attorney General Murrow has looked into some additional laws that we will probably be pushing forward maybe next year to address complete artificial intelligence, because they're getting so good at it.
Yeah.
We can't tell when we're looking at it whether it's that or it's an actual child anymore.
Wow.
That's how good it's becoming. So we would like to hopefully be able to say it's all illegal.
That's
Any depiction.
scary. That is
And
absolutely
Can I
frightening.
just say, in addition to all of that, the young lady got expelled. And that's what really, really bothers me, because obviously there was not enough investigation. And I was watching the school board meeting where the attorney was talking about, how absolutely unreal it was that she got expelled before they realized what had happened. And I don't know what's going to happen now, but can you add anything to that?
So I can say, from speaking with our partners with the LaFourche Sheriff's Office, they did have an investigation. They arrested they arrested someone in September.
Okay.
And there was an ongoing investigation. So I think that some of the information that was put out may necessarily not be accurate.
Okay, good.
That somebody was arrested in September for it. They had to do some search warrants and some ongoing investigation because they're trying to determine who created it. This person was involved in distributing the images. So they want to find out who the person is that created it. So they sent some additional search warrants and legal process. And then sometimes on the forensic side of the house, it takes some time to download these devices and go through each one of these pieces of evidence. So I would say it's reasonable, that the sheriff's office is conducting an investigation and began conducting it early on when this first came out.
But this young lady was not at fault in any way, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, okay, and so I'm just saying, just for the panel to realize, that's what happens sometimes, and it's I don't know what the answer is, but thank you for elaborating on that for me.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. I wasn't even familiar with that. Those are the kind of things that really frightens me. I mean, things have changed so much. Ms. Hadley.
Hi, Chris. My name's Lacey. I work at the Children's Advocacy Center in Northwest Louisiana. Love what you guys do. Our Bossier Parish Sheriff's Office was definitely what educated us on the ICAC system and what they do, and they've had a lot of success in that parish. So thank you guys for that. I definitely wanted to ask on the education component with your partners. Are you only wanting law enforcement and prosecution to kind of take education, or are y'all wanting to expand to other agencies like advocacy centers?
No, we're open to anyone, and the information, you can obtain the information and the programs, a baseline program from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They have pre-loaded PowerPoint presentations for you on there, specific to every age group. They also have like handouts, different handouts that are quick tip sheets to, if you're going to a parent group and you want to hand that out, that gives them quick resources by hand. So absolutely. I mean, we can't go wrong with using that same platform. And look, alter it to what you want to alter, unless you're going to tell them don't call the police ever. But alter it how you need to alter it. But that's the same baseline that we're using for everyone, is what they have preloaded from the National Center for
Okay,
Missing and
great.
Exploited Children.
We already use their material already.
Absolutely.
Okay, I didn't know if there was anything at the state level that y'all provided, or is it solely through NCMEC?
We use them because that's kind of the standard nationwide. So we
Perfect,
want to
okay.
stay on the same lines of, this is who they need to report it to, this is how they need to go about things. Obviously, when it comes to what laws are violated, that's going to change a little bit when it comes to law enforcement. But I think as far as from a victim standpoint or a child standpoint or a parent standpoint, I think it's best that we all stay nationwide on the same page.
I agree, and I definitely want to echo Chris on that. Like, NCMEC is a powerful website, and we've used them a lot. And I know they have a system where if any children's photos or videos were online, their hope and goal is that they can remove that off the internet, so
Yes.
that doesn't have to follow them into their future.
Correct. They
It's
have-
tricky, but I know
It-
they have
it
that
is.
option, which is an amazing option.
And I think that's found at takeitdown.nicmic.org. And that's another resource that people can use. They go to take it down. If the child's photo got out, they will do everything they can to try and have it removed. It's very hard to have it removed, but they're at least working on something and trying to have that happen.
I agree. We've created a presentation for all adults, grandparents, caregivers, in regards to how to protect your child in the digital world. And it's all NCMEC material, I'm telling you guys. It's really beneficial.
Absolutely.
Wow, wonderful. Well, again, I want to thank you. I want to thank Mr. Ferris. I want to thank the AG, Liz Merrill, for making this such a high priority. And y'all have really changed the tides in terms of just what we've heard, the arrest that we've seen. Certainly, anybody who have been in this state for the past 5 years, you could definitely see the increase and the change in those individuals who are criminals, who are out there performing these bad acts. I think they're getting the message that Louisiana is not a place to be. Are there particular corridors that are more high traffic than others? I heard you mention New Orleans, and I'm assuming it's because of the rail, the ship, the interstate, etc. But is North Louisiana just much in jeopardy as the southern part of the state?
I mean, I would say it's your heavier populated areas. They're always going to be your heavier
Okay.
numbers. Caddo, we have large amounts of numbers in Caddo, Lafayette, Baton Rouge is one. But we have, in those areas, we have very strong partnerships now, and those things are being addressed. And just to kind of speak on something that the Caddo and Bossier Sheriff's Office work together, because we brought them together on the task force. They end up working a case where Caddo is looking into these people for child pornography or child sexual abuse material at the time. They believe they have a hands-on offense where the offender is sexually abusing his girlfriend's 2 children. From there, they were able to determine that the sexual abuse was actually taking place in Bossier. So they worked together as an ICAC team, went and executed the warrant. At that point, they rescued, I think, 3 children. They continued the investigation. The 3 children were rescued in Bossier. They continued the investigation, digging through, and rescued an additional 5 children from this guy's previous girlfriend that he was also sexually abusing and creating child sexual abuse material to share on the internet. So I think that's one of the biggest things is if we're all partnered together and we're working together on this for the common goal, we're going to have a lot more success. If those guys didn't know each other and didn't communicate, he writes a warrant for child sexual abuse material, and that's it. And this guy gets arrested for possession of child sexual abuse material. There's no children being recovered. There's no victim advocates involved. It just continues to happen. And he gets, maybe probation. I will say that prosecutorial agencies have started to really ramp up what they're doing to sex offenders across the state and people that are convicted of these type of crimes.
We do know that human trafficking is a billion-dollar industry. And as you're wrapping up, I'm assuming your remarks, as a legislator, you have myself and you have Representative Edmiston here, and then we have the whole team that's going to be helping us to put forth legislation going forward. I heard you mention that the AG is looking at some legislation regarding AI, but is there anything that as you guys have been working on this, you find that there's a gap or something that you would like to see tighten up or something that you would like to address? How is it that we can assist you?
So I've actually had some meetings with the Attorney General and some of her staff, and I think they're actually going to be delivering a package to y'all regarding some of the holes that we have seen in maybe some of the laws and some things that we think can be changed for the better to further address this. Some of those being what they call in the federal system child erotica, and that it's a crime federally to possess child erotica. On the state side, it is not. And there's no reason for a 5-year-old to be in a thong. None. So I think that's something that we're trying to push forward. And like I said, I've had some meetings with her legislative team, and I think that's something that they're going to address and bring to y'all.
Okay. So that's one thing. And I know funding is always another one. But again, we just want to say we appreciate you. We thank you for the hard work. I pray that God continue to keep y'all covered because it's a lot to see. To process and to deal with, because there's some really sick people out there doing some really bad things to children.
Yes.
And so you guys are I call it the first front line of defense, and then we have law enforcement who comes in to assist. And so we just want to say thank you, and your work is not going unnoticed. I don't see any additional comments, and so again, Mr. Masters, thank you so very much. Tell Mr. Ferris I said hello, and I just saw the AG a few minutes in State Bond.
Sure.
So have a great day.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Okay, so Dr. Hook, I just been told that you're going to do the alternative response for DCFS. Would you like to go down to the table and do it, or?
Would you like me to go down to the table? I can do it from here, if you're okay with that, or I can go down to the table.
Somehow I just like seeing you before us, but you can stay there. All right, Dr. Hook.
All right. So we did present you all with some information about the numbers of cases that we had received. And again, the numbers that we presented were cases received by region for alternative response. And you have two categories there. There are the child-on-child sexual abuse in a school setting, and then child-on-child sexual abuse without parental culpability. And so the difference between those is obviously the first category occurred in the school setting or was reported in the school setting. The other category may have occurred in a child's home or alternative, location potentially, and then we've gotten some reports there, is my understanding of that. We did have a significant increase. So in August, when we went live in August, we had 4 cases that were reported for child-on-child sexual abuse, and then there were 41 cases that were the child-on-child sexual abuse without parental culpability. So a total of 45 cases that were reported. And remember that in the past, DCFS would not have had any involvement with these families. They may have been referred to law enforcement depending on the situation surrounding the report, but there would not have been any involvement from the agency. In September, we did see an increase. We saw that 25 cases were called in from child-on-child in the school setting, and then a slight increase of the cases without parental culpability as well. So 52 total cases in that category for a total of alternative response, 77 cases. And I'm sorry, actually, these are some updated numbers that I'm looking at. So I think that your form actually says 75 cases because we had 2 additional after this report was turned into you all initially. And then I do have some numbers from October that you all don't have that we had available to us after we provided this information to you. So in October, the child-on-child sexual abuse in a school setting were 56 cases that were reported to us, and 45 without parental culpability. And the total that I had at that point, and this was through October 27th, so that number may increase because there were still remaining days in October when this report was generated, was 101 total cases. So since this law has gone into effect, DCFS has received a grand total of 85 cases of child-on-child sexual abuse in a school setting, 139 without parental culpability for a total of 224 cases. And, I think for me, that was a larger number than I had expected, like when we first sat together and talked about the need for this law. We have had 4 of all of the cases that we're talking about. We have had 4 alternative response cases that have then resulted in an investigation. So remember that when we respond with alternative response, we go in, we assess the family, and we see if there's additional resources that are needed. However, if during the course of that investigation, we determine that there may have been parental culpability or there is a reason for DCFS to investigate child abuse or neglect, then we are able to do so. And there were 4 cases that resulted in an investigation. They were all 4 were in the northern regions for our state. And then of all of the families that we have interacted with since this law has went into effect, we've only had 4 families refuse to let us into the home. So that's actually, I think, a really great number. Families are willing to work with the agency, and it seems like, perhaps the families are just as concerned about the behavior that we're seeing as we are. And so I think that is encouraging that we've only had a small percentage of families refuse to work with the agency because it is a voluntary, involvement with the agency at that point. So very good. One of the things that you all might see from your sheet is that we did break it down into age ranges as well. And so we'll get you the updated numbers from October. But, you know, one of the things that is always, I think, alarming is when we see especially the younger children being involved in some of these cases. And so we do have, you know, I'd say a significant number of cases that involve children less than 6 years old. So something that we are definitely going to continue to follow and see the numbers and the trends on that. We did see a significant amount of that type of case being activated with child-on-child sexual abuse without parental culpability. So there was more of those cases that we saw than actually in the school setting, but still a significant number. You know, when we look at this, it's important to remember that when these cases are established, we had to figure out a way to be able to track this data. And so it is the case and the age group is with the youngest child involved. So for example, if something occurred in a school setting and there were 5 children involved and the youngest child was 5 years old, the case would be created based on, like, you would see those numbers reflected on the youngest child involved. So, you know, there could be multiple children involved in a single case. One of the things we are going to try to do for y'all is try to see if we can break it down a little bit further into, you know, like what type of school, was it private versus public? We don't have that data right now. I think the way that we would have to do that is actually go through each case and look to see where it originated. So that might be a little bit labor intensive, and we may have to focus on specific age groups for that.
I know OTS is here with us today, so maybe they can help us and give us some insight in terms of how we can make that a little bit more easier, where it's not so labor intensive. I think that's extremely important. I have to tell you, I was deeply, deeply disturbed when I saw the age range of the kids, which, you know, makes me very concerned because oftentimes, as we have listened to most of the testimony given here, and so I'm glad that we have actually passed a law, right? Even for those who may not agree. There seems to always be some level of dismissiveness because of the age and being able to get a true account from the child because of the age. But this is a significant number. It's really, especially in the September number, and you didn't give us a breakdown for October in terms of age, but
Yeah.
I would assume that it's probably very similar.
Yes, it's very similar. For the breakdown that we had for child-on-child abuse in a school setting, there were 2 children that were reported that were 0 to 2, and then there were 21 children reported in the 3 to 5 age group, and 16 in the 6 to 8 for October. And we can
Yeah.
provide you with those updated numbers.
The bells are absolutely going off. Thank you for that. So we do have a few questions, and so the first question is from Representative Edmiston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the listening audience and for our public here, explain parent culpability for us, please.
So that would mean that the
In the
parent.
mic. Hold up.
sorry.
Put us all on. Thank you.
So when we're talking about parental culpability, basically that the parent had some awareness, maybe was not exercising protective capacity in the incident. Sometimes we would talk about like passive child abuse or passive sexual abuse, where a parent knew something was happening but didn't do anything to protect their child. So the cases that we're talking about, there was no parental, like knowledge of any wrongdoing. There was nothing that our agency received information about that would result in abuse or neglect.
Okay, so the parent culpability is usually low. Is that what you're saying for the most part?
For the alternative response, yes, it's
Explain
extremely low.
alternative response for us.
So that is our response to any of the child-on-child sexual abuse. That's our initial response to the family that was established. We had an alternative response years ago that the agency used for certain types of cases. We
Well,
kind
to
of
explain alternative response. What's
So
the primary and
assess
then
the
the alternative?
families. They're going to assess the families
Okay.
and see if any services are needed. It's
Okay.
not an investigation.
Okay.
And the families
That's the
have
difference.
voluntary participation with the agency.
Okay, okay.
And now, as far as an investigation, it has to meet a certain criteria in
Okay.
order for us to be able to investigate. So it has to constitute abuse or neglect in order for us to be able to investigate. So in the course of an alternative response, if we go into the home and assess the home and then get additional information and find that maybe there was some parental culpability or there was abuse or neglect that was occurring in the home, then we would launch an investigation. But initially, it would be an alternative response.
But it's fair to say that some of these can be reported and you wouldn't even go into the home and investigate. Is that fair to say?
All of the ones that we're talking about here, we completed an alternative response. So we had a contact with all of those families, except for 4 which refused to allow us to
Okay,
have
and that contact would be going into the home?
Correct. They're
Okay.
supposed to make contact in the homes. Of the child, that was the alleged, offender of the act, and then of the
And
child,
the
yes,
victim.
the
Yeah,
victim,
Okay.
yes.
And just, can you sum it up instead of these numbers? I don't think in terms of numbers, but, so how many were dealt with in terms of law enforcement, would you say?
I don't have the numbers on law enforcement,
y'all
if there
don't-
was any like criminal,
Yeah.
typically if it's child on child, and especially in these lower age
Yeah.
groups, it would not meet any type
Right.
of, criminal act by the child, especially in the younger children that we're talking about.
But you would definitely need to be
Yes.
involved in those situations,
And in the
correct?
schools, the call is actually initially supposed to go to law enforcement, and then law enforcement alerts the agency. I don't have the specific numbers on how many of those came directly to us or how many of them came through law enforcement.
enforcement.
Let me see. I can tell you the type of reporter that we had, but I can't tell you if it was like an initial report or.
Okay.
So we had, in August, we had, let's see, 2 of the cases reported by law enforcement, and then that number increased to 12 in September. And we had 4 reported, and this was all in the school setting by law enforcement in October. And then as far as school, we had 0 reported in August from the school of the 4 cases. It increased to 10 in September, and then 42 in October. So as people are completing training, I think there's a better awareness of what their responsibility is. We had 43,804 individuals complete the new mandatory reporter training since this law has gone into effect.
Was that everybody, school, law enforcement,
Yes,
across
yes.
the
And
state?
so
Yeah.
there were 35,255 teachers that or childcare providers that
Okay.
completed the training.
Good.
And then there were breakdowns between, some of them were like biological parents that went online and wanted to take training. There are, just different healthcare professionals, graduate students, like we really
Okay.
can break it down. We do a pre-test and a post-test for the training. And what was really interesting to me to see is that there was a pretty significant increase from the pre-test to the post-test score. So that's a good thing. People are learning from the training. But some of the areas where you wouldn't expect, 82 isn't like necessarily a terrible pre-test score. But when we're looking at that coming from a healthcare professional, you might expect that score would be much higher. At the end of that training, it had gone up 10 percentage points to 92. So, even some of our law enforcement, when we look at the pre-test, it was 81%. And that's law enforcement, it went up into the 90s after the post-test. So there's some information, I guess, that's important to the
That they
training.
don't know.
Even.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you find that overall there's a lack of understanding of who is to be a mandatory reporter?
I feel like there's a lack of understanding, and then I also feel like there's a lack of awareness of who to report to. So often they're completing part of that report, and for example, if it's a child abuse case, but there's also a crime, a crime was committed, they might be reporting to us, but then they aren't making that report, like to law enforcement as well. And sometimes it's in pretty significant criminal
Exactly.
acts.
And so, do you make that information
do.
known to law enforcement?
Yes.
because I'm afraid if we rely on parents that their understanding is DCFS or whoever's reporting and not law enforcement. So, but you do report those
We
things.
do, but I think it's
Because
really.
communication seems to be an
It's-
issue with everybody,
It
you know?
is, and I think we always have to keep in mind that the report is always best from the person that has all of the facts at the time that they're making the report, and that there could be a delay with our report being made to law enforcement, because we're to report to them within 24 hours.
Okay.
And often it's even difficult in some of the smaller regions to be, like, we're complying with that part of the law, but there are some law enforcement agencies that don't have the capacity to be staffed, like, as much to be able to receive some of those calls. So sometimes there can be a little bit of a lag. And then we on our end too, it is, our workforce is trying to make sure that we're always making that 24-hour time
yeah,
frame.
yeah.
But there could be a lag. And when we're talking about a child's safety, it's really important that if you're reporting it to us, to report to law enforcement as well. Because again, remember, like that law enforcement is the one that's going to be able to, if there is a crime
Absolutely.
going on, get into that home.
Right.
And if there's a crime, like make an arrest. We can't make an arrest. We can ask for custody of a child, but we can't arrest an individual.
So, do you make the person who's reporting aware that they need to make the report to law
We
enforcement?
should be doing that, and
You
I
should
can't.
be doing it, but are you doing it?
Like,
That's
that's
the
a good
thing.
question. We'd have to listen to the calls to
Yeah.
see. I'm sure
Yeah.
that.
We are doing that now.
You
well,
are?
but I
Our
mean,
systems, yes.
Good.
the law enforcement, yes, like our systems will make that referral. But if you're asking, if I called to the hotline today, is the intake worker telling them you need to make a report to law enforcement? We should be, and if we're not, we need to continue to educate.
Good, good. Because don't you think that's a place that we really need to make that statement
Yeah.
to whomever is reporting?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Evanston. I think that part of me is still kind of stuck on the numbers for the children in that 3 to 5 category. Going back to the parental culpability, because it's really hard for me to understand how 3 to 5 year olds know anything as it relates to sexual acts altogether, and so. I guess my question is, how is that really being evaluated with them as it relates to that? Because that age group to me is they can only imitate what they have seen or experienced. And I'm no doctor, so I look down here to all my physicians down here, but I'm trying to understand that piece. And then I guess secondly, are you guys working with DOE to help, I guess, identify maybe schools, areas, or are they coming into play at all with you guys with the investigation or
Are the
reviewing the information?
is LDOE reviewing any of the information?
Yeah, are y'all working with them?
We have been working with them to
Okay.
make sure that there's awareness of Act 409 and the responsibility of the
Yes.
schools to report. So we have been doing that.
Okay.
And they've been very helpful and
Okay.
been willing to, disseminate any information that we have that we want to get out. Like we've been trying to do that. They've also disseminated information across the
Okay.
school systems. I think because this is new for many people, there are going to be some questions that come up regarding the law. If we're getting questions, we're trying to direct them to the appropriate place or develop something like
Okay.
a resource for individuals in order to help answer those questions and make it a little bit easier. We do have a one-pager that we developed that
Okay.
talks about Act 409.
Do y'all have the one pager?
I should have brought it with me, but we can get it to you within.
Yes,
within
because I
minutes.
wonder what
Yeah.
what are some of those frequent questions?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
And so it also clearly breaks down when to report to law enforcement, when to report to DCFS, and when dual reporting would be necessary. So we're hoping that will help a lot of our mandatory reporters because we do hear, that there's confusion about.
That's on the one pager?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I heard Rep. Epperson kind of asking that line of question. I think that's really important, and I thought we had outlined it in the bill. I keep looking for that every time we come here because I that was one of the things that we were attempting to try to do, and I feel like we still have not yet mastered that quite
I think some of it is just, like public awareness and really just having to do a lot of outreach to different schools, healthcare providers, law enforcement agencies, our workers as well, making sure that we all understand, like when we need to be communicating to each other across different systems so that we don't, let anything fall through the cracks.
I'm wondering. I keep thinking about like with human trafficking. So and this is the easiest thing for me to remember. I know that like oftentimes when you go in the restroom, there's a poster board and it says, if you suspect human trafficking, call blah 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 blah. I'm wondering if we should do something like that for child abuse and make it real simple, right? A one pager, and it can be at the schools, it could be everywhere where we have children, right? Where it's actually posted that if you suspect child abuse, this is where you call, right? Whether it's back to you guys, and then you decide who actually should take the call, whether it should be DCFS or should it go to law enforcement. But it would be it could be one single entry point, because that's what I was attempting to seek to do, to make it very, very clear. Yeah. Yep. And anybody who sees anything, right? Because oftentimes people see things, but they don't know exactly where to call, and they don't call anybody.
Yeah, I would just want to, really hammer home, though, like if we know a crime is going to, I know sometimes it can be gray and you're not really sure if a crime has been committed, but if you're aware a crime has been committed, like you do need to report that to law enforcement, because that's going to be the most timely response that we can get. If you're reporting it to another agency that may not be directly looped into law enforcement, then even an hour delay might be too much, like for that report. So I want to caution us when we're thinking about that to make sure if we are going to have a central entry point, then we would probably have to have a way for it to be pretty immediate to law enforcement and DCFS, so that there isn't a lag in response by either agency.
So I know we have 911. Do we have like any other 11 numbers that we can use, like 811, 711? This is just me thinking out loud. Is there something else that we may be able to look at?
I think
Who's that,
Secretary Harris is going to come and speak a little bit more, because we
Oh, she's-
are,
okay.
revamping our centralized
Sure,
intake a
sure.
lot.
You're on. Well, no, I thought you were. Let me see. Everybody.
Clarify one thing, because.
Hold on.
You had asked a
on.
question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So you're talking about the referral to law enforcement with our system with Quick Connect? All law enforcement around the state is already loaded into the system.
Okay.
So all those numbers are directly connected, right, to where we can hit a button and immediately put law enforcement on that call with us. So that's where we've gone to make sure that we don't have that communication gap that y'all were talking about before.
Okay.
So that's what we're using going forward to make sure that this is still connected when the call comes into us.
So explain that one more time again, Mr. Hanneman.
Connect.
Quick
Okay, with our
Connect.
system.
Okay.
In that system, all the departments, sheriff's agents, everything around the state's already preloaded.
Okay.
So when a call comes in, we can easily connect them to that call, so it's an immediate referral.
Okay.
That we're not going around waiting to call them. They're on it immediately because we can send that to them now.
When did that start? Hold on. Let me just add everybody. Let me see. Can we do that? We got that. Is that right? Did I do it? No. Nope.
Secretary Harris, is that something that you were going to speak on also?
Yeah, were you,
Am I pushing the buttons and knocking everything off? I'm sorry. Okay, let me not push anything else. I'm sorry. Okay, I think we are all on. Okay, so you had a question?
Yeah, I was just asking, when did that, when did that start?
I have the answer on that. Rebecca Harris, Secretary for the Department. October 9th is when we added all of our law enforcement to the system.
Have they been communicated to that system? Like that's in effect now, that they know that they're aware of that?
Yes.
Because I did not know.
Okay.
And was that solely to law enforcement?
We're planning to make additional improvements, but this is the first step in making our Child Welfare Safety Response Center more like a 911 center. And so we've added all of our law enforcement, state police, local law enforcement, and sheriff's offices to it. Long-term, we plan to add more resources so that we can operate as a 911 center. So we would have hospital systems, our investigators, so that there's more immediate dispatch and response.
So tell me kind of like right now, so it started October 9th, so it's only been into effect maybe a month, right? How does it right now, if a call comes in and then it's deemed immediate and imminent, what happens?
If a call is considered immediate, what would happen is it goes through the same process of taking all of their information. The centralized intake staff will make the determination if law enforcement needs to be added. They can research based on the zip code and quick connect them into the call to share information with them about the report.
And so how long does that take, like that process? Is this a matter of minutes or, okay. Okay, and welcome, Secretary Harris. Glad to have you here. Captain Patu.
Yes, ma'am. So I did want to ask one question, but I think Representative answered most of it, which was related to the 4 cases that the alternative response led to investigations. Those aren't necessarily, they could be any type of investigation, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and because I think that that's a good benchmark for the effectiveness of the agency as they go into homes and they see various things that need to be addressed. I think that's a good statistic to keep track of in the future. And I did want to make one more comment related to, you mentioned the 911 centers, and the 911 centers are always going to be extremely important. I'm guessing that the very large majority of what's loaded into Quick Connect is a direct line to those 911 centers. I know a lot of people, from time to time, they think, oh, I don't want to call 911. But for local law enforcement, that call center is your main hub for that information coming in, and in order to get that information. 911 director may direct you to give you an additional line during business hours to call a non-emergency line. That's fine, but that still needs to be information that's going to the public, that when they see these things, they still need to call 911. So.
And I was thinking about that, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking maybe on the flyer, it could have something that says, if you believe that this is imminent danger, call 911, so people know, okay, it's okay to call 911. But if it's you think it's important, or you suspect something is happening, then call this number. Okay, glad you brought that up, Captain. Ms. Shelton.
Well, I had a question about the alternative response, Dr. Hook, and then I have a question about the call center too, Secretary Harris. There was 4 investigations opened by DCFS because of a parent with culpability situation. Was there any law enforcement referrals of those cases? Do you know that data, if it was a non-parent or a non-caretaker?
Don't have the data, but we could easily get that because we can pull the specific cases.
Okay, because I think that would be important to know. It is possible that there's a teacher involved or someone who's not in the home, but the fact that you guys have got involved with that family, that referral was made to law enforcement, and I think that's part of what we were trying to capture with changing that statute. So if we could get that information, I think that would be helpful. And then also, can you speak to what services are being provided by alternative response to these families?
I could provide additional information. I don't know if Secretary or Assistant Secretary Hanneman has any of that right now, but we could definitely provide an update and additional information for specific agencies we've been referring to or working with for the next task force.
Okay, and I would also just like to know if the families are accepting those referrals, like if you're getting a positive response from them about the referrals you're giving. That would be helpful.
And a follow-up, just really quickly. Did I hear you say they were all up north?
Just the 4 that
The
were,
4.
yes.
Yeah. So
The rest of them were throughout the state.
Okay, so when you say north, are we talking like Caddo? Or are we talking about?
I can give you so we had in Alexandria, Monroe, and Shreveport were the 4. Like they were spread amongst those regions.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
Okay, and then are we going to talk more about the call center? Are you going to speak more to it, or are you taking questions?
she's going to speak more to it.
I'll wait on
Yes.
that. I'll wait on
Yeah,
that.
she came up, and you're actually in queue to come up next. And so Dr. Thurban, I'm sorry, Dr. Thurban.
Just wondering, in the tracking of child abuse, if you're also tracking the abuse associated with aggression and violence.
No, we're not currently tracking that. I'm not sure if we have a way to break down the allegation. So right now, we're tracking this information based on the information that's coming into Access, and there has to be a category assigned to it. We'll have to see if we have a category that would be assigned to aggression or, a difficult behavior. I'm not sure that we have the capability to do that at this time.
Okay, understood. That does affect the impact of the abuse if it's associated with aggression, so something to consider.
Good point. And on that note, let me ask this question. So, because I'm still, y'all just have to forgive me. I'm still stuck on the 3 to 5. But, and so since the investigation starts with the youngest child associated, could that possibly mean that the youngest child could be 3 and the other child may be, I'm going to say 9 or 10?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, then. That may help me a little bit, but still, these numbers are very alarming and something that I was not looking forward to see when we first started down this road. Okay.
They're not all between those ages of 3 and 5.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But just the category, just those numbers. I mean, when you look from 3 to 12, just that whole category at the most formative part of a child's life, that's very alarming. But okay, all right. So I think that is it as it relates to the questions that we have for you, Dr. Hook. And so now we are here from our Secretary, Secretary Harris. Thank you so much again for being here. And I know that you're coming to provide us with an update. I know there were a couple of questions that I may have heard regarding the call center and things that I think may come up. So welcome aboard.
Thank you. I didn't prepare an official update. I'm here to answer any questions that you have, but I wanted to run up here whenever you started talking about a 3-digit number. So I know that's something that was discussed last legislative session. We've done a lot of research across the country to try and see if there are any other states that have a 3-digit number, and we could not find one. And so we are looking to research all the appropriate material, have the appropriate conversations to see if Louisiana can lead that space by having a dedicated child safety response number that is a 3-digit number that can become known and synonymous with that.
Okay. And so no other state has, and that's one of the things, that's interesting that no state across, because this is a premier issue. I mean, it's not anything that's unique to Louisiana. As I've, traveled, and no other state has created a 3-digit number at this point.
Not that we found, no.
That's something we need to do across the country.
Agree.
So there's been a lot of changes with your department. Is there anything that you would like to update us as some of the changes that have transpired?
I think the most important things, second shift, we've talked about a little bit, but second shift was our initiative to make sure that we have individuals available to respond timely and appropriately to investigations. And what we did is we looked at when we're receiving calls, particularly priority ones and immediates, what areas we're receiving those calls in and what times. And based on all of that information, we put together our second shift. So they work 4-day work weeks, 1:30 p.m. until midnight. They overlap on Wednesdays because that's typically court day for most of our cases. And their hours are specific to be nights, weekends, and holidays. That ensures that anytime there is a case, there's somebody immediately available to respond. We recruited and hired those individuals September 15th. They began taking cases November 1st. So this improves our timeliness, our response, our work-life balance for our first shift investigators, and the overall operations. Some of the relationships that have been built from that are, for example, in New Orleans, Mr. Hanneman made the connection there where our second shift employee works in the hospital. And so we're creating stronger relationships with the hospital system, with our law enforcement, so that we have somebody there when a child may come in that is in need of our assistance for an investigation. The second important thing that we did is our reorganization of the department. We looked at where we have resources and if they are directly driving improved outcomes for children and families. And what we found is that we had moved a significant number of resources to state office that acted more as oversight of the community level field office staff versus contributing to the work and helping to ensure safety for children and families. And so we have moved resources back to the local level. This ensures that we have appropriate staffing, appropriate caseload levels, and it also provides more coverage for continuity of services for a child. So for instance, right now, someone may come into care and be in foster care, and then they move to extended foster care and they have a different worker. And then they move to adoption and they have a different worker. Our goal is to invest in our frontline staff and have them trained to where they can handle a child, the whole child, for their entire time that they're involved with our department. And then the third, I would say, is related to the call center. It's historically been centralized intake. It's a model that is unlike anywhere else that we have found in that they are 100% work at home. That model has not served us well, and some of the challenges that we have found related to wait times and different things, those are the exact reasons that other states who attempted to have a hybrid or work-at-home model, they reversed course and they have it as an in-office setting. With part of the One Door initiative, the Emergency Preparedness and Response section of DCFS is moving over to LDH, and so that frees up what's currently our Emergency Response Center on the first floor of the Iberville building. It is the perfect space for our call center. And so we are going to take that space next month. That will become our Child Safety Response Center, and we are going to organize it to work more like a 911 center as opposed to just taking calls. And so we're very, very excited about that work, which we expect to have much improved outcomes, both in timeliness for answering the calls and the way that we handle them more in real time.
Okay. So I know that I've gotten some questions about the call center, and so maybe what you guys are attempting to do, you said next month in terms of moving it?
Yes.
Okay. Because this has always been a question that came up. And so, and I know that OTS is here because I've always tried to figure out how we can make this a lot more seamless. So going back to what they used to have, like this big dashboard, like when every call would come in, and I'm not sure what it looks like today, and you can kind of see like the level of what the I guess complaint was, or what the call was about, and what action was taken, who was responsible for it. Is that going to continue? Is that kind of like what you have in mind, or is it going to be something different?
So October of last year, we switched our telephony, the system that we use for our call center, and we moved to AWS, which has been a very powerful platform for us to be able to use. We do have more robust wall boards, which you're describing, where it shows calls in queue, calls that are waiting, calls being handled, average handle time, all of those metrics for us to be able to manage and monitor. What's going to be good about having this in a single site is that there will be huge monitors at the front of the room so that every single person, including our leads, can see what's going on. So for instance, and you know, this is not going to be a great story, but this is what we're going to be solving for. Monday, I called and said, hey, you know, tell me how many calls we have in queue, how many calls we have waiting. And we had 9 calls in queue, 11 waiting. And I said, well, what's the average? What's our longest wait time? And the longest wait time was 53 minutes. but we had 24 people working. And so it's very, very hard to manage and monitor and collaborate when a call comes in when everyone's working from home in that setting. So I hope that answers your question.
So going forward, you envision that everybody will be in the call center?
Yes, it's going to be phased to get there because right now everyone works across the state. They're all across the state. We looked at what individuals are local to Baton Rouge, so they have a work or home domicile of either East Baton Rouge Parish, Ascension Parish, and Livingston Parish. And I think that yielded 19 individuals. So whenever we take occupancy of the emergency response center, those individuals will come into the office. And from there, we will start working on redeveloping our training for our agents to more align with APCO and NENA, which does all of the training for 911 centers, and then hopefully also some EMR training so that they can more effectively communicate, emergency medical responder training, so they can more effectively communicate with hospitals and other medical professionals to understand the terminology. Once we have that down pat, we will start a recruitment effort for the remaining of the positions in Baton Rouge. As those individuals are onboarded and trained and they are successful and ready to start taking calls, the individuals, the child welfare specialists that take calls now that are located statewide, they will be redeployed to the local office.
Okay, so how long do you expect this transition to take place?
The entire transition, we anticipate having it done by the end of the fiscal year. So by
Of
June
June?
30th. Yes.
Okay. And in the meantime, I guess we won't have no lapse or gaps, because I have gotten complaints about people calling the line and it goes to a voicemail. I've heard that. Now,
It's the operations are not great now, which is why we're striving to change it.
so you said 24 people were on the hotline. How many, is that a typical number in terms of how many people that we have working the hotline?
We're working right now to change the schedules that individuals work. One of the challenges that we have, and this is noted even from a legislative audit report that came out in 2023, was that we don't use data to make the decisions about when individuals are staffed on the hotline. And so we have been pulling in that data to determine what the new shifts are going to look like. What it tells us is that the majority of our staff, 36 to be exact, should be working the hours beginning at 8 a.m. So we're going to be moving individuals to start working where we'll have a dozen come on at 8, a dozen at 9, a dozen at 10, and then you'll have just a few that are overnight and early morning shift. But the majority of our calls come between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m., so that's where we're going to move our staff to.
But currently, what is that? What does that look like today? Because I know, and I heard somebody say, that they, right now, people are getting a voicemail. That is not good. So, yeah, so how are we going to try to make sure that doesn't happen right now and through the transition?
We're working to adjust everybody's work hours right now to have them available on the phones when the calls are coming in.
Okay.
I will say one of the other challenges that we have, and we hope to be able to talk more about this in the upcoming session, is that a big challenge is related to the hotline and also the online mandated reporter portal. So the way our law is written, that is that for immediate cases for mandatory reporters, they have to call, and then they also have to follow up with a report through the portal within 5 days. And so what that does is it creates duplicative work both for the reporter and for us. And so we have a significant number of staff that are having to spend their time working the reports that are coming subsequent to a call that we've already received and responded to. So for instance, on Monday, the additional staff that weren't on the phone, they were trying to process all of those reports that had come in through the system. And so we've looked nationally to see what that looks like. In most other states, I think there's only one state where they require both, but many other states have moved to having only one required, with most using just the hotline and using an online portal when the phone or hotline is unavailable.
So the new system that you talked about in terms of the platform, is this going to assist with some of this?
Yeah, I don't know if OTS wants to join me on this one, but we're talking to OTS about how we can, absent any change to the law, how we can use technology to kind of help us with this.
Yes.
And so Matt can talk
Come
much
on
more
up, Matt.
eloquently.
Wait a minute. I don't see your card, Matt.
Promise he can.
Because I talk about you guys almost in every meeting. Because I believe that, while I am, not a big fan of technology because of all the things that you could do with it, I do know that it is an excellent tool to be utilized. And I want to see how we can actually maximize this and get rid of some of the duplicative work that is happening.
All right, so good morning. I'm Matthew Vince. I'm the Deputy CIO for OTS. And I feel like I talk with Secretary on a multiple daily basis, it feels like, every day, going through different ideas and ways we can use technology to our advantage here. And so through the call center, through the mandated reporter portal, the integration that the Secretary was talking about, there's a lot that can be done there. That is that's actually one of our newer systems, thankfully. So it's the one that's, I think,
Is that the AWS?
both of them actually, both the call center and the access system and that mandated reporter portal are both on some more modern technology, and so it's a little bit easier
Okay.
for us to make those changes or to work with individuals to help get those changes in. We've also talked about strategies for integrating kind of data across the department where we can. So I know there's been talk kind of historically about data silos, but we have some things in OTS now that can help break those silos down, where we may have an older system, but if we can get the information out of there, we can have other tools that can present that maybe in a more modern way. So as Secretary was talking about with performance dashboards and other ways to maybe bring out some information from maybe buried deep in a system, we can surface that a little bit easier through dashboards or other reports. I think there's a lot of opportunity there and where we are from the OTS and DCFS perspective. So there's a lot that can be done. I think what we need is just kind of more insight into what challenges are there. Hearing kind of the challenges here about what the reports you have and where that data is. I think we're open to really all the ideas. I think there's a lot that can be done, though, and we're here to support the organization.
So I'm assuming you were in here when Dr. Hook gave her report with the alternative responsive cases, and what I would like to see is a better correlation with DOE, with them, with law enforcement, et cetera. Do you see how we can actually make all of that work?
So I think it's the easier path is definitely with the DOE.
Okay.
And being part of the executive branch, it's a little bit easier for us to work with them. On the law enforcement side, it does get a little more complicated because there's so many different interested parties. Separately, OTS we're working with another bill for the victim notification, and kind of working with the different police organizations and sheriff's offices to understand how their systems work, because some of this is deep technology that we have to cross some of these barriers, and technology is not the same parish to parish and jurisdiction by
true.
jurisdiction. So there's definitely some things to work through there, but I think our work we work with the ICJIS Policy Board, which is the Integrated Criminal Justice System, also with state police. I think with DCFS and other organizations within the executive branch, there's opportunities there because the barriers are a little bit less. They're on kind of the same network. They speak the same language more or less. But I think if there's opportunities, we can work with different sheriff's offices or other local law enforcement. If there's, we know the kind of vendors that work in that space that support those. We're familiar with them and their systems, so perhaps there's opportunities for sharing. Because I could see a future where these systems are actually talking live and we're not necessarily doing things on the phone. But that's a lot easier said than it is done. There's a lot of technology kind of hurdles to do there. But I think the good thing about technology is it changes every day. There's what may be a barrier now
That's
isn't
true.
necessarily the same in 6 months. And so the more we're involved, the more we're aware of what their challenges are, we can help bring, get rid of those barriers and help the systems talk.
Well, the main fact that we are now communicating all together, at least, this is the first time I've actually seen you guys in a meeting with a department talking about how to actually navigate and to break down that barrier, to me is a huge step. And so that's one that I absolutely applaud, because I think that we have not utilized our OTS department to the fullest, personally.
Well, we're here to help. And
I know that you are.
Outside of this committee, we do talk often about challenges and ways that those things can be addressed, and not just with DCFS, but with really everyone that we work with. And I think there's a lot of opportunities that can be taken advantage of. So look forward to help.
Well, I'm glad to see this movement, and I'm not going to say what I was getting ready to say, because I have not always seen that, but I'm glad to see it now. Representative Edmiston.
Chair, probably for, OTS, I was just wondering about the hotline that we're going to have, or the number that we're going to have for the public to use. I'm just thinking another number. I don't know. Is there any way, and I know this is ridiculous, but I don't know anything about technology, so I think that you're brilliant and you're going to be able to answer this question. But is there any way that you're just using the 911 number, that you could route the calls for child welfare one place, the calls for law enforcement one place, so that we could do the work and let the public just have the one 3-digit number? Is that a possibility at all?
Ooh, that's a tough one. So
Yeah, is that the
Right, because
stupidest thing you've ever heard?
Right, well, no, I think I understand where you're going. The challenge with 911 specifically is that number is pretty much relative to where you currently are. So if I call 911 from here, I will be connected to a different center than if I did it in Lafayette or if I did it in New Orleans. So consolidating that may be more complicated. However, we do know like some of the software that exists in these 911 centers, and there could be a way for us to integrate on the backside of it. But we would have to work with, we work with AT&T and the large technology, our telecom vendors.
Yeah.
We can work with them on some opportunities, but there is some challenges there, just kind of the way that those numbers work. But I think we can absolutely have those conversations and talk with the call centers and see what's available.
I'm sure it would entail probably changing the way it works, but I'm just thinking what would make it easiest for people to be able to report and to get in touch with 911. I mean, it's just people are just, I just think we need to make it as simple as possible, because I think we're missing a lot of stuff because they don't know where to go or how to access what it is. And now we're talking about another number, right? Is that right? We're going to have another number for people to call? Is that what y'all were talking about? Potentially, right, yeah, that's what I mean. So before we do that, if we could just investigate that and see, you understand where I'm coming from?
Yes.
Just trying to make it as simple as possible. Thank you so much.
And I love the way that you just said that, because that's the point, right? We need to make it easy for individuals to contact us when they need us. Right now,
Absolutely.
it's quite complicated.
It is, that's
Yeah.
right, and I feel like we're missing a lot. So I'm so glad y'all are in agreement with that. So whatever we can do to investigate that, I would appreciate it.
You know what would be nice if we did something like they've done on the national stage for those individuals who are having like mental issues, the 988, right? If it could be a national move across the country for children, which I think we really need to exploit doing. I mean, we need to explore that, because this is not unique to Louisiana. Ms. Wascom.
Hi. I have a couple of questions, and I think my first one I just may have missed when I was taking notes. I want to make sure I understand the way law enforcement, with the Quick Connect. So when someone's calling the call center and y'all are identifying the closest law enforcement, is the DCFS worker notifying law enforcement, or is the person on the phone being given that information and they are? And I ask that because Dr. Hook, you made an additional comment about law enforcement may be quicker to respond in certain situations. And I just want to make sure that, like, I didn't miss something.
Yeah, I don't think it's really about, a quickness to respond, but in certain situations, law enforcement needs to respond
Yeah.
immediately, depending on what the case would be.
Right.
Like if there is somebody that has a weapon and a
Oh,
child
yeah.
is being abused, like we just want to make sure the right agencies are there at the right time. But I think, if there's an immediate response, we also need to be there in a timely fashion. So we're not trying to say that one agency would, supersede the other. We just want to make sure that every problem is being addressed in the most, quick manner that we can.
So let's just say, let's say I called the number. And when the DCFS worker is putting in the information, looking for law enforcement, the closest law enforcement agency, would DCFS notify the law enforcement or would the caller?
It would be part of the same call, correct, Secretary Harris? So it would be routed to that law enforcement agency.
Yes.
Okay,
so
I just want to
with-
make sure that it's clear. It was just not clear, but I was maybe I was in the middle of taking notes and I missed it.
Yeah, and all of this is still new. Originally, when it was added, we made enhancements to the system to send email correspondence to them after the call and within 24 hours. And so, again, we just recently added all of the law enforcement to our system for us to be able to do the Quick Connect with them. But through Quick Connect, you have the option of what can be done, and it's based on the scenario.
Okay.
So we can either make a call to them after a call with a reporter has concluded, or we can add them into the call, into the active call.
Okay. That is, I just needed the clarification.
And my understanding of it as well is that we would still be able, if a reporter wanted to be anonymous, because we're able to quick connect, we could be then the reporter to law enforcement. So we don't have to, the reporter does not have to give their full identity if they don't want to law enforcement. It can be protected.
Okay. So my next two questions are together, but they have to do with the mandatory reporters. I think I've asked before, and I know that I've asked some of the attorneys involved on who are mandatory reporters, because it's not clear if the visitation observers are mandatory reporters. That's not listed anywhere, I think, that I've asked.
Supervising visits.
Like who does the supervised visits, the observers. I feel like that's common sense, but if it's not spelled out, I think that that's a loophole we could.
Do you want to speak to that?
I do not believe that it's actually that spelled out in the law for that specific subset of individuals, and I agree that it probably needs to be addressed because we often have visits that are supervised by, an objective party.
Yeah. So, I think that things could happen during visits that maybe. The other question I have about the mandatory reporter training that I think is just a question that I've gotten from people who are not mandatory reporters. Is it available to the public for anybody to take that training?
Yes, it's free. You will create an account, and then you'll basically be able to log in and take the training, and you will have access to everything just like anybody that was a mandatory reporter. So you do the pre-test, you would take the training, you'd conclude with the post-test, and then it would log you as being a completed participant of the training. And we do see that we're having an increased number of individuals. Like we have some, like I said, our biological parents some of them are taking the training. We have certain individuals that were not mandated. So healthcare professionals are not mandated by law to take our training, but we have seen an increase in the number of healthcare professionals as well. So we're seeing lots of the public be able to get into it.
That's all I had.
And Ms. Wascom, the staff just made me aware that we do have that on our list.
On the list? Okay.
Yeah, of things to look at for this
You
upcoming
just
session to add.
Perfect. I just wanted to, I know we've had a couple of I've had conversations with a few of us, and I just was reminded when I was thinking about whether or not this was public.
It's free. I think that's the most important thing to
Yeah.
say is it's free, so it's of no additional cost to anyone in the public that wanted to take the training. You just have to create the account. So you would have to have internet access.
And so if one wanted to do that, do they go to your website? How do you register? I mean, how do you do that?
Yes, and so you would
Okay.
go through the website, and I don't have the address memorized to tell you right now, but it is, I believe, on our one pager as well, I think, and if not, we'll
Okay.
add it to the one pager, because it's a little long. I can't
I
memorize
think that
it.
one pager is going to be so significant if y'all could send that to all of us, because I would like to actually post that on my social media platform. And really, John, you get the information out to everybody. Thank you. Let's see. Captain Patu.
Yeah, I have a question. Both for Secretary Harris and Mr. Vincent, if you can, I guess, each take a turn. Mr. Vincent first specifically, I know you probably weren't here for this meeting, but in the past, I believe it was the head of Louisiana CAC who had mentioned an initiative that was in Mississippi where alerts from their intake system were sent out to CACs in order to alert them of new cases. Is that something that's going to be capable with your system, or if we haven't gotten that far, is that something that you guys can keep in mind? Alerts on the backside, if Secretary Harris was for something like that, but it was something that we all thought was interesting. I don't think it's just Mississippi. I think it's a few other states also. But it's essentially alerts, which obviously we can tailor what information goes out. But on the backside, to contacts in order as a stopgap to try and give somebody else outside of that ring opportunities to ensure that cases are moving forward and something isn't dropped.
Right, so I wasn't in that meeting, so I don't have a lot of information about the Mississippi system. But in terms of what we have available that OTS could offer, we have systems now that can do alerts on a individual basis to a mass, hundreds of thousands of recipients, depending on the nature of that message. So if you needed to do a text message or even automated phone calls, we have some technology that can facilitate that. I think we would need to work with the department to understand when those alerts need to go out and to whom, but I think the technology is there. We have the groundwork, and we do that today. There's systems that for emergency alerts, for SNAP, we have things that go out for SNAP systems, so it just really depends on what we need to do, but absolutely, we can look into that and using existing technology to solve that problem.
Thank you. Yep, that was a question, I guess, essentially, is that something that your agency is looking at or would be interested? And we can give you that information offline, but I believe it was Crystal Mitchell that had that information and provided it to us.
Yeah, I had not been part of a conversation yet where we were talking about doing something like this, but I think it would fit nicely in our Community Pathways network that we are working on, which there'll be a lot more information to come on that, but it's kind of a much more enhanced, what we know as FRCs and MCCs. It's taking the best of that plus the best of what's happened across the country and then bringing that to a single model here in Louisiana, which we'll call the Community Pathways Network. But it is going to have some power behind it in the form of website and mobile apps to where there's more immediate sharing of information and working across partners to be able to support children and families at the time that they come into care. And so I think that would fit nicely in there. So we'll take that back and think about how to do that, yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Captain Patu. Dr. Birch.
So my question is for Secretary Harris, and I think as we have heard different witnesses in different meetings, a repeated theme is just some of the challenge that's inherent in conducting a joint investigation and the process of initiating joint investigations, and some of the barriers that people face, like not being able to share who the reporter was and things like that. So I'm curious if as you're thinking through Quick Connect, it already sounds like there's some thoughts about how we might protect confidentiality of the caller. But we've also heard from law enforcement that if you don't know who the caller is, it's hard to follow up and to pursue a lead and to interview witnesses and things like that. Are there other barriers that maybe we need to think about as we're informing legislation that really impact that joint investigation process. And could you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you face in initiating joint investigation, and if there are potential solutions in terms of information sharing between law enforcement and child welfare?
I think certainly what you said is one of the main challenges that we have, which is protecting the identity of the caller, and that inhibits sometimes our ability to move forward, especially when you think about that being a report that we receive through the portal as opposed to a phone call. The information's incredibly limited, and we don't have anyone to reach out to gain additional information to even begin an investigation and collaborate with other individuals. I would say the other challenge is the relationships, and some of that has been based on us not having enough staff on the front line. We are fixing that. So again, the workforce, and then having our second shift so that we have the capacity to be able to reach out and work more timely with our law enforcement and others to complete investigations, do team meetings, and be able to move them forward. We're working with Southeastern, who is the main head of our Child Welfare Training Academy, to reimagine the way that we train, which will touch the way that we do investigations, and take on more practices that are used in law enforcement, for example, and fold those into child welfare, as opposed to it being first and foremost the training component.
Do you feel like it would be useful to have legislation that would allow communication between law enforcement and child welfare,
Yes.
at least around who the reporter is and looking at some of those,
Yes,
those
we
barriers?
had that conversation this morning to pull the law, to look at it again, to make sure that it is the law that's prohibiting us and not our interpretation of the law. So we can come back with that answer, but as it stands today, based on our interpretation, yes, absolutely. If we could share that information, it would be very helpful.
That's it.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
That-
Yeah.
Because it's amazing that, so we have colleagues that are watching this, right? And so along those lines, actually, one of my colleagues texts and they're listening, and they, ask the question, has DCFS ever explained why they don't initially take all cases and then transfer them out to the appropriate, whether it needs to go to law enforcement, or is it something that they actually need to address? And she's like, have you ever explained why you don't just accept all the cases and then actually report them out?
So we're bound by what is legally defined as abuse or neglect, and those are the cases that can be accepted for investigation. We made a change last week that kind of is in the vein of that, of us having more relationship with our partners, and when we receive a call, if it's something that should be acted on by someone, maybe not necessarily us, that we are making that connection for individuals. So last week there was a case out of St. Francisville, and the concern was that was provided to us from the media was that it was around just a well visit.
Did you say the media?
Yes,
So the media contacted you guys?
yes.
Wow.
And so it was around well visit, and they were questioning us. And so when we sat and looked at it and talked about it, we said, well, no, if we received a call related to just a well check, that wouldn't be something that rises to the definition of neglect. But should we stop there? And our answer is no, we don't believe that we should stop there. And so we implemented procedure and provided training to our staff that said, hey, look, if there's an instance that we ever receive a call that's simply for a well visit, hey, I'd just like somebody to check on this child. No substantive reason why, but I'd just like somebody to check on that child. That's something that we should contact our local law enforcement, add them through Quick Connect, and make that connection. So we're looking at opportunities to do that, and we will continue to improve and evolve and respond.
Before you came, Secretary Harris, I used to, and I still do, refer to this department as the heart of government. Because the one thing about this department is, I don't care how much technology we have to have people to
Yes.
touch people.
Yes.
And you cannot replace that with computers ever. And the mere fact that media contacted you really raises a flag for me, because that means that somebody there saw something that was missed. And if someone contacted the department and someone didn't just logically think, hey, we need to go and look, then that's concerning. Because I was going to ask you about the number of employees. I know how much money the legislature has actually committed to this department in spite of, right? There are a lot of folks who have said that you guys are overinflated, yada, yada, yada. It costs money, right? It costs money to do this work, period. And I recognize that. And so I think that we've tried to address some of the human capital issues, probably not enough, because with the challenges that we have, just listening to what we just heard about technology, all the things that families are confronted with, I don't know if we will ever have enough. But at the end of the day, I'm just, common sense, just hearing, making a decision to say, hey, somebody needs to go and check. That just kind of just really perked my ears, that the media call. And I'm glad that you say, no, we're going to just go ahead and just call law enforcement. But that should have been the immediate response once the call came in.
Yeah, and I think it's a symptom of, over time, the department was, the child welfare crisis. And so that causes us to become a department of compliance versus a department of performance. And we are encouraging staff to make that shift back to be about performance and serving our community.
So you say crisis. So I guess you assume that you guys are not in crisis mode anymore.
I think there will always be crisis.
Okay.
But we can't live in that mindset, because then it's,
Okay.
we operate in checking
Thank
a
you for
box
clarifying
instead of
that,
thinking
yeah.
about what that child and what that family needs.
Because I don't see you guys not being in crisis. But
That is
yeah.
our work. That is
Yes,
our work.
yeah.
But that can't be our
Okay.
mindset.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that, because it cannot be the mindset. And being able to think logically should be the absolute premier mindset.
Yeah.
Ms. Shelton?
The call center questions now, Secretary Harris. You said there was a difference and they might add law enforcement to the call versus to call them after. How are they making that determination? What is the criteria for those two things?
So I would say that criteria is evolving. Now that we have this option that's available to us, we are working on training and procedures to determine what's most appropriate. So certainly if it's a call that is an immediate, we would be able to add those law enforcement in. If it's something that after the fact, normally through the process would be reported to them within 24 hours, the agent has the chance to be able to disconnect the call and then call law enforcement.
And when they make the connection, are they staying on the call? Is the DCFS intake worker staying on the call to ensure that they've connected it to the right law enforcement agency?
Yes, because that's one of the challenges, and I think Dr. Hook had spoke to that a little bit, and we're adding that information. And so especially when you get to some of these smaller areas, their local law enforcement office may not even be open.
Right.
They have somebody that's on call. So it's going to take a little bit of working through that to be able to understand which departments have someone that's available around the clock. As we receive that information, we'll be adding it into our database so that our agents know whenever they go to loop in law enforcement, which is most appropriate and who has somebody that would be able to respond.
Okay, and so if it's a doesn't meet criteria, law enforcement referral type of situation for the intake call, are you still going to follow up in writing with the intake report to law enforcement, even if there was a connection made there?
Yes, and we implemented some new technology, I think, a week or two ago, where we get a full transcript of the call plus a summary. So we're going to be able to provide much better information to law enforcement when we send that referral over to them post-call.
And it started October 9th, so this is already in place. This is working now?
Yes.
Okay, but you're still developing the criteria kind of based on how it's
Yes.
working? Okay. And then the letter that, I can't remember the number for it, but the letter that comes out after if you request that you made a report and it'll say accepted, referred to law enforcement with that language in it, is that letter still happening even if the referral is connected?
Yes,
Okay, so all those things are still happening just along with the connection?
yes.
Okay. And then my last question was the second shift. You said 53 were hired?
Yes, and I think we have 51 at this point in time.
Okay, so retain 50. Okay, thank you.
53 were hired, and we currently have 51, so 2 left
Yes,
at the very beginning.
yes.
And so how many people do we have totally hired in the department now? Overall,
Department or child welfare?
in the department, and then child welfare.
In the department, we are at,
2,300.
no. In the department, I'll have to get the number. I'm lost in number land because we've been doing the shift with One Door. So we've sent a lot of staff to
That's what I want to
LDH,
know.
and
Yeah, how many are still there?
we're at,
Okay.
okay. Our undersecretary, Chris, is at the back of the room.
Okay, Chris, we waiting on you.
3,000.
And how many do we have in child welfare?
Child welfare, our number is 1,250. I'm sorry, 1,439.
1,000.
1,250 is the number in the regional offices. Total in child welfare, 1,439.
And how many do we have total yet, Chris, in the department completely? That's the same, Chris?
Yes.
Okay. Chris, you want to come up?
Thanks, Senator Bear. I'm still pulling it right now.
Okay.
Christopher Baum, Undersecretary for the Department.
So since the, I want to use this word, since we have reassigned some of the job responsibilities, how many of those individuals have now gone to either workforce or LDH?
We had almost 1,500 individuals that moved to LDH, and we had 88
individuals transferred to
Louisiana Works.
How many?
88.
88. And how many still yet with the department?
do not have service in here.
Okay. Well, we're going to let you work on it.
Committee.
Yeah, we're going to give you to, hopefully you have that before the end of the committee. Maybe you can step out in the hall and get that information because that's important. And prior to the reassignments, how many were totally there? Anybody know in the department in general? Okay.
Can you restate the question? What was the?
I say prior to the reassignments of everybody before we began to break down the department, how many were totally employed? How many were actually on the DCFS?
Prior to One Door?
Yeah, prior to One Door.
So it was right over 4,000.
And so right now,
2,000, because it's 1,400 in child welfare. There's right at 300 in child support, 9 in TANF, and right at 300 in the Office of Management and Finance. So we should be about 2,300.
okay,
But
so.
we'll get the exact number for you.
Yes. So it's a little bit more than half, right? That was reassigned.
Percent of the department left.
Okay. But now we have more of a focus, or should be, kind of like more dealing with child welfare issues.
We say child-centered is the way that we're focusing. So it's 2,138.
And what's that number? That's the total?
That's the total that's left after one door.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Representative Eppiston.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Our colleagues are watching, and so we probably talked about this, but can we get a little summary for her, the answer to her question? The question is, what is the referral process from DCFS that delays the law enforcement response? Can anybody give me a summary for her? We talked about that. Yes, I can. The referral process from DCFS that delays the law enforcement response. I think we've talked about communication. We've talked about the new number where we're going to get them on the, maybe on the line whenever we're, I think all those things are probably a tribute to this, but can you answer that?
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe they're trying to get at the question of, right now, we have up to 24 hours to notify law enforcement about a specific case if law enforcement needs to be notified. And so when I had spoken earlier, there may be instances where maybe
It's longer.
well, hopefully not. It shouldn't be now, but before it definitely was.
Right.
And so, it shouldn't be now. It should be 24 hours or less because that is what we are mandated to do. But there might be instances where we're notifying, like in 2 hours or 3 hours, and maybe law enforcement was really needed right at the onset. And so, we don't want to delay law enforcement knowing about something that they would consider an immediate response for them.
Exactly.
That may be different in the way that we investigate abuse or neglect.
So is it safe to say that the number that we're talking about where we're going to maybe patch in law enforcement is going to impact that?
It should certainly help, yes.
But that's not going to be until next June that we're complete with that. Did I understand that correctly, or I'm wrong about that?
The Quick Connect is operating now. And
Okay.
for June, that would be the transition to the Baton Rouge location for the call center.
Okay.
It would not be completed until the end of this fiscal year, that complete transition.
Okay, and how's that going to impact everything? You just having it in the originating in Baton Rouge? I'm not understanding that. Explain that to me.
We're moving centralized intake back to the Iberville building.
Instead of all around the state.
Remote around the state that we found really hasn't been working,
Right,
at least to the level that we want it to. So we're going
Okay.
to bring it back in, and it's going to be like a true 911 EMS center.
okay. And that'll be in June.
By June,
by
that
June,
it'll be
yeah, that's what I mean.
completed.
That'll start next
Okay.
month.
So by June, we'll have the footprint that's here in what is set up as an emergency response center. We'll have new and improved training that more aligns with 911 centers. We'll have EMR training, and we'll have new procedures as to how to use technology that we're implementing, such as the Quick Connect to law enforcement.
Okay, okay. I think that probably is going to answer a question. I wanted to say what you said, performance, not compliance. That is so rich, and we absolutely need to implement that. It seems like we've been more compliant than we really have been out there really helping families and children that are in need, and I'm just really happy to hear you say that. Now, I'm going to give you an observation that I've noticed. I've been, since Senator Fields and I have looking at East Baton Rouge Family Court, I've been to some of the court appointments of some people in the area. I've noticed that, and I know I'm not trying to put any blame anywhere, but I've noticed that because we have such delays with judges and recusals, and we have this hearing for this and this for that, that a lot of times the DCFS worker is there. Sometimes 3 or 4 are there, and they are sitting there waiting. Really, maybe they're working, but it just seems like a kind of a waste of resources. Do you understand what I'm talking about? I know y'all do. And it's crazy. I mean, they're just sitting there. So is everybody else. And again, I'm not putting any blame. That was just an observation I wanted to mention to see if that was something we could look at to maybe make better use of our time. But it seems like you already know that.
Yeah, we just had a training and a meeting with the judges last week. Pelican Center for Children has been instrumental in helping us to look at opportunities for improving relationships and processes between the department and our judicial system.
Great.
And so we spoke with them particularly around second shift for them to be able to understand whenever they receive some pleadings that they can tell from that whether it's a first shift or second shift employee, and they can use that for docketing purposes. We also talked about how there can be opportunities for improvement in their overall docketing so that we don't have staff that spend the entire day there. Because to your point, when our investigator is there in court waiting on a case to be heard, there's a child waiting on that same investigator to look at their case and make a determination as to
Absolutely.
whether or not they need to be
Absolutely.
removed.
So glad you're saying that.
Yeah, so we just had that training with them, and so the
Okay.
conversation is new and fresh and lively, and we're all working towards the same goal.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Mr. Hanneman is jumping at the bits to respond to this.
You brought up one of the things that we have found, okay, and let's say we get to an area where they're only holding court on one day. Or it could be multiple days. That's a problem when it's a Tuesday and Thursday,
Yeah.
and our workers might be there all day
That's right.
instead of out doing what they really need to be
Absolutely.
doing and
Yep.
saving the kids. So through the calls that we've had recently with the judges, making them aware of what our challenges are, at least I think it's more of a collaborative effort going forward.
At least you're talking.
No, we are.
And addressing that, because I think that's an issue, and I really appreciate y'all looking at that. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And before I go to Dr. Birch, I just want to ask this question right quick of OTS, because I don't know, and this is what I am going to do within the next week or two. I don't care how I fit it in, but I'm going to make it happen, because I want to see the call center. I want to see what we currently have, right? I want to see the board, the dashboard. So do we have, like, is there a timer? I don't know if you even know this, like how long somebody's been waiting on a call, because I heard you give sometimes earlier. How long has a case have been in the queue, and the whole process in terms of like what happens next? Does that currently exist? And if it does, is that going to change going forward in terms of, I'm going to use this as an example, and I don't know if this currently exists. If a call is in the queue and the person that has received a call said, okay, this needs to go to law enforcement, is there something that actually says, gone to law enforcement? And if it is there something that is there that says, that allows the department to come back and just kind of just double check and make sure that it was actually evaluated or responded to?
So maybe it's a two-part for me and the secretary, but it's a very advanced call center
Okay.
that's provided for this one. So all those kind of metrics you were talking about, the kind of foundations of a call center operations, how long something's been in the queue, how many operators are available, that kind of thing, number of calls, time, length of call, nature of call.
Okay.
All that stuff is there and able to be reported on any dashboard in any format that you need. In terms of like the performance and that kind of thing, I think we can work with there's a vendor that helps with this one. There's
Okay.
actually a few, and so we can work with them on customizing those forms. So you're talking about those calls that
Like
are
follow-up.
that are kind of being transferred or maybe being jointly managed, or the ones that require follow-up. All that's available through the reporting tool. And so I think, depending on what the need is of the department for their performance of their call center, there's a lot that can be done. But it's all there, like what you would expect. Your standard metrics, all those things are all there, reported on pretty much any frequency you would need, whether it's this day, this week, this month, this year.
Does it also show if calls were rolled over? Like no one answered, nobody picked up, and so it went to a voicemail?
Yes,
Okay.
those kind of calls. Both the ones that where someone maybe hung up and the ones that went to.
Okay.
Those are all tracked.
Okay, great. Dr. Birch, I'm sorry.
I wanted to go back to the compliance versus performance. And I work for a mental health agency that exclusively serves kids who've experienced trauma and loss. So we make frequent reports of abuse. So if we get a referral for treatment and they say it's because of past abuse. If we don't have any way to verify that it's been reported, we often are in the position of re-reporting. We also have kids who disclose abuse during the course of treatment because we know kids with past trauma are at risk for ongoing abuse. So in a recent call with a hotline, we had about a 45-minute wait time. And some of the screening questions around risk, I think, are something that probably need to be revisited. We were in a telehealth session, and a kid was like, if I leave my room, I will be abused. So we called the hotline, waited 45 minutes with the kid in a telehealth session, and then they were like, the kid is not in front of you, so you are not allowed to report imminent risk. We can only hear that as like you're kind of a removed party. And we were like, we are literally looking at the child, having a conversation. So we reported as we could, and then I requested a call back from a supervisor, which took another hour. So we are now like hours into this kid being fearful of leaving the room, being denied food for a full day. There are things like that that I think in that screening process, like you said, you need the human response of, I know this kid is at risk. I know that we need an immediate response. And I think the response, we also reached out to law enforcement. I'm in New Orleans. The response from law enforcement is often not super immediate. And so, the response for this kid, I think, happened like 5 or 6 hours after the report was made. And so I think those screening questions on the front end and really the ability to assess imminent risk matter a lot. And the delay in time that comes with even 24 hours in reporting to law enforcement, that joint investigations can be so critical, and that window of time after disclosure can be so critical that I think as a task force, as professionals who are really charged with the welfare and the well-being of children, that time matters. And I think this additional staffing and all of those things are super important, but that's also being able to accurately and adequately assess risk that I think is kind of devil's in the details.
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right. What we have been talking about so much lately is that this Child Safety Response Center, everything that we do comes through there. And so we have got to get it right at that front entry point. And that includes the assessment and the information and details that we're capturing. And at what point when we're receiving that information do we go ahead and start dispatching? So, I mean, you're right. And those are the exact things that we're going to be working on through the remainder of this fiscal year to make sure that this truly becomes a response center.
I think that's great. I think the other side of that too, as we're thinking about, risk assessment as the professionals who work with young kids, I think how we also dispatch law enforcement and child welfare together. Because I think this was an instance where law enforcement was also needed just because it was late at night in a remote area. And, I think most child welfare workers would not have felt safe going into that solo. And so I think too, how we integrate on the front end is super important and has a lot of implications for how kids' experience in the investigative process unfolds.
Agree. And we do have, I don't remember the date of it, but we have some trainings that are lined up with Louisiana State Police. I don't know if you know the dates offhand. It's like, no. But we do have some trainings lined up where we're going to be meeting with them, same as we've just met with our judicial side, to talk about how we can better work together to serve the children and families.
That's great.
Very good point, Dr. Birch. I immediately thought about 2 babies that I lost in my district last year to fentanyl, and one of those cases was attributed to the community by which the family was living and having to have the worker to go out late at night alone because I think in going earlier, no one was home, and so the only time. And certainly as a result of that, and her not feeling safe, that child died because no one got there earlier enough. So those kind of things are extremely important. And I know that we have law enforcement here. Certainly that they have some recommendations and suggestions that they will make to us as well that can help them, because certainly we know that they have a lot going on, right? And this job is one that is always critical. It's always it's always massive, on fire, depending on, and it doesn't really matter what part of the state you're in, because I'm sure that in the rural areas they have as many things happening there as we do here in the city. And they have less resources. So, but anyway, I look forward to hearing from them. And it doesn't seem like we have any additional questions for you, Madam Secretary. And it looked like you may be also finished, Mr. Vince. You guys came up as a duo. And again, I am excited. I know I met with you guys earlier this year. We talked about a lot of things. I'm excited about what I see coming forth. And I always say this, I'm not a big fan of technology. I just know we have to have it. And whether I like it or not, it is here to stay. And it is advancing in ways that we can't even imagine. We just heard about AI and all that other kind of stuff. So we appreciate you guys being here. We thank you for the work that you are adding to the department. Madam Secretary, again, welcome. And I am going to make a way between the next week before Thanksgiving, because I really want to see what the current call center looks like. So when you integrate the new one, I can see the difference.
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Okay, great. All right, I don't see any additional, oh, wait, somebody tapping me? Okay. All right, let me see. I know that law enforcement has been here a while. At least I know that Mr. Ard office has been here a long time. We were going to break and take lunch. And I'm wondering if we should go ahead and allow them to come up. Let me see. It is 12:20. I know he's been ready. Come on up. Captain Browning? Bowing.
Yes, ma'am.
Bowing. Okay, and also we have Thibodeau, Kendra Barnes. Okay, come on up. Ms. Barnes, and do we have someone here from EBR? Is EBR here? Yeah, there go my people. I don't have a card from you. I don't see one anyway. And after this, we are going to take a brief lunch break, and then we will take all of our public testimonies following this. Okay. All right. So we are going to start with you, Ms. Barnes. Thank you so very much. And you're from the Thibodeau.
The Thibodeau Police Department.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Detective Kendra Barnes. I've been a juvenile detective for 8 years now.
Can you pull that mic a little closer to you? A little bit more.
Okay. Is this
There you
better?
go. Yes, ma'am.
I've been a juvenile detective for 8 years. And when I've seen that this was going to be about law enforcement processes, I decided to kind of show up.
Thank
I
you.
should have dressed a little better, but this is what you get. I would like for someone else to go first. It's my first time, so I don't know how this works. If that's okay.
You got it. You got it. Go ahead. You can introduce and tell us what you do at the department and anything that you would like to share as you, because I like the fact that you saw that we were having this and you decided to come. That says a whole lot to me.
I've worked with our DA, Christine Russell, and a really good relationship with our forensic interviewer, Shannon Grow, as well. So we've actually had quite a few different situations in our area that really does need some, I guess, knowledge and adjustments to. Recently, they did go to notifying our, like when DCFS gets a report for law enforcement referrals, for some reason, they're reporting to my personal cell phone and not to our agency. I've tried to get them to change it multiple times. Huh? Yes, yeah, so I think I've had 2 different people call me so far. I try to let them know that this is my personal number, not the police department, so that way they can actually talk to our dispatch and have an officer respond. We've recently had a case where a 13-year-old confirmed victim of trafficking from another state was located in our area. Tried to get assistance from the Department of Children and Family Services as well as the Care Coordination for Sex Trafficking. We were denied and informed that they couldn't get involved because she's an ward of the state, of another state. The solution was to either leave her in the hospital for up to 5 days for that state to come and get her, or for me to lock her up in our juvenile facility and treat her as a runaway. I think that I don't know if there's like a bunch of miscommunication between what's going on with that. I don't know if it's like a policy, procedures on the Department of Children and Family Services getting involved when the kids are ward to another state, but me and the hospital ended up working out a situation for her to be able to stay in the hospital until that state could come and get her. And I've been in contact with that state to make sure that all the resources and everything's been there for her. And her caseworker over there has been keeping me updated with her. Another thing that I think would be a lot easier for our investigations, I don't know if it's the same for everybody else. We have worked with our Department of Children and Family Services where we can actually work together from the beginning. So when they get a case and they know law enforcement's involved, we contact each other, try to arrange to where we're working it in the beginning. We did have issues to where they would start their investigation, do a full interview with the victim, send them to us. We still do the forensic interview, and ends up that the kid's getting interviewed multiple times when they should be using the Children's Advocacy Center anyways. We tried figuring out how we can adjust that to where if DCFS is there present for the forensic interview, if maybe it's possible for them to not have to have such an in-depth interview with the victim all over again. I don't know if that's something. Let's see. Oh, I wrote some stuff down too while I was listening. Sorry. Today was the first time I ever heard about the Quick Connect. Didn't know that was a thing. So I would like to get a little bit more information to where I can give that back to everybody else. I'm a lot more involved with things involving juveniles resources than most other people in law enforcement in my area. So I know if I didn't hear about it, none of them know. And we did realize that a lot of our family practitioners, any of the doctors, the pediatricians, when they make the referral to DCFS, they weren't making one to law enforcement. They didn't know that that was an option, so we've been trying to educate them for that. Because we've also seen those situations too, but
Were you familiar with the one-sheeter that the department had created as well?
I learned about that. I wanted to take a look at that too if I
Okay.
can. Yeah, I thought that was a really good idea, so.
Okay. And so I'm trying to get my bearings straight as it relates to location. I know Thibodaux is kind of down south. I'm just trying to
Yeah, it's
kind of
in
figure out like which
Lafourche
CAC are they connected to? Like,
Shannon.
okay.
By Nichols State.
By Nichols State. Okay, just trying to get the parameter together. Trying to, as I listen to you talk about some of the things that I see as gaps as well. And hopefully, I'm glad you came today, and hopefully the information that you've received so far is going to help kind of bridge some of those gaps. Is there anything that kind of comes to mind that you see as something that you would like for us to address, like that you see needs to be done like immediately?
No, I do like the fact that you're allowing us to speak. It would be nice if, I know for me, I would like to be involved a lot more, just so that way I can at least explain the issues that we have on the front lines, because a lot of people don't talk to us to see where the issues are. And a lot of the higher of everybody makes all the decisions, and then it kind of gets passed down, but they're not realizing what the actual issues are. So I am really glad that today is the thing. But I would like to be a little bit more involved, or to at least see more law enforcement involved, to where they can actually have a full conversation.
Thank you so much. And you do have a couple of questions. And before I go to the first question by Captain Patu, I'd like to ask you, how did you hear about the hearing today?
From my DA and our friends.
Let's give her a hand.
So,
Thank y'all. Okay, that's right. You did say that. Captain Patu.
Thank you for coming and talking to us. You bring up a lot of points that we've talked about here that keep coming up repeatedly. One in particular, I just wanted to highlight, we in state police, from time to time, get the same kind of issue when we encounter either a missing or runaway child from another state, and then we don't get help from DCFS to come out and help with that child. And a lot of times the child is, just like you mentioned, the child might be at a state police troop until a family member can come from Texas and that obviously on Texas is big, so that comes up from time to time. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Captain Patu. Never thought about that, never realized that in terms of an issue. Representative Emerson.
Thank you. Just real quickly, I just want to say thank you. You did a great job for your first time. And we appreciate you coming. And this is what we need more of, is the people that are doing the work to come to the table and tell us what you see and what the problems are so that we can address them. So thank you again. Thank you for letting her know, too.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. I concur. Dr. Hook.
Wanted to also say thank you so much for coming, and I know the case that you're referring to. So we do have issues when a child is in the custody of another state. That is something that is, I think, a glaring need for us to address, to figure out how to better respond to the child, because it is a child, and the child is in need of someone to be there to support that child. I think the case that you're speaking of, without getting the specific, it was several hours before anyone responded, like over 8 hours before we were able to, and that's actually probably a better response than maybe you've seen in different cases. So that is something, maybe an area that we as a task force could look at, but there will be, it'll be multiple, our neighboring bordering states are going to have to be involved too with whatever solution we come up with, because often it's that child is in the custody of the neighboring state, and we're coordinating with that child protective agency, trying to figure out, like how to get someone here for that child, and there's a delay getting them there from the other state. So without us taking custody of the child, we're not allowed to transport the child. So we're going to either have to, us as a state, try to request, emergent custody of the child, or allow the child to remain in the custody of the state for which they're already in the custody.
So in that instance, because y'all need to help me understand this, so when the child is here, what happens? So as you wait, so those 7 hours, what happened?
Yeah, so typically what's happening is there's conversations between our child welfare agency with the child welfare agency in the state the child is in the custody of. So, Texas, Mississippi, wherever that is. And then there should be a coordination of the DCFS agency from the other state making arrangements to come pick up the child. And it would be the same for us. So if one of our children were located in Texas or Mississippi or another neighboring Arkansas, then we would be making arrangements to go get our child. What we can do is, have courtesy conversations with the family or the child. Definitely should be helping and talking with law enforcement and letting them know if there are delays. But it's my understanding that we can't physically take the child unless we have custody of the child. So we're not able to remove the child from the hospital or from the law enforcement agency.
And then from my understanding, if she was in a ward of another state and ran away from like mom's house and she was here, it would be totally different.
Right.
They would be able to respond.
Yep, we would be able to
So
go and
it's-
ask, yes, we would be able to go and ask for custody. And so it's a kind of a gray area, but it does cause an issue for the child.
Yes.
So maybe there needs to be some kind of interstate kind of like agreements?
Yes, and so we do have interstate compacts, but they're, as far as like taking custody of the child, that's where it gets a little tricky. A lot of our arrangements, and I can't speak specifically for human trafficking, but for a lot of children that are in our custody and then either go to family members in another state or have visits in another state where they're potentially going to have treatment in another state, we have to arrange with that state to make sure that they will accept our child into the state. And then we're still responsible for that child while they're in the state, and we would still make our foster care visits and make sure that we're, making sure that child is doing well in the other state. But there is a compact that we have with neighboring states, and so we would have to look at that a little bit, I think, and see if there is a way to better serve these children, because the trafficking numbers are only going up, and we're going to see this more and more. So definitely an area that we need to figure out how to work together on that.
I'm gonna put you back on, Representative Emerson. As I'm putting you back on, how old was this child?
Well, I wouldn't want to speak too much to specifics. I'm scared that we would give too many details.
Give me an age
so-
range. Are we talking young or
Teens,
teenager?
Teens.
Okay. Low teens. Okay. Representative Emerson.
Senator Barrow, I'm just curious, where does the child stay for that 6 or 8 hours? I mean, is there a designated?
Yeah, so this child was in a healthcare facility and so remained at the healthcare facility during that period of time, but did not have a medical reason to be in that healthcare facility. And so law enforcement.
Hold on. Make sure. Yeah, everybody on.
I know the two that within the last 2 years, I think we had 2 out of Texas that were runaway children, and they're going to be at the state police troop just there, until a parent comes, and in both of those cases, my understanding was that because they were runaway children, there was not going to be DCFS involvement, and so the parents came. So it wasn't Texas DCFS coming also or anything.
The
So
parents still retained the custody of the child.
They must have, yes.
So, because y'all didn't really have any other place, the child just stayed there, is that correct?
That's correct.
Or the children?
Right. And it's obviously certainly not an unsafe environment, but it's
Right,
not.
true.
We can do better.
Yeah, I feel like we can. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Cook.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Okay, so you could just stay at the table just in case additional questions come up. And now we are going to hear from Captain Baldwin. Thank you so much for being here from Livingston Parish.
Thank you. I appreciate it. My name's Captain Calvin Bowden. Been at the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office for 28 years. I'm the captain over the Internet Crimes Against Children, Special Victims Unit, and Sex Offender Compliance. First of all, I wanted to, before I forget, what Dr. Birch brought up about the information that law enforcement receives that's anonymous complaint. That is one of the things that handicaps us in the early stages of an investigation, because if you have those complaints that are anonymous, you don't know who to go talk to get any other information. I know the reason for it of being anonymous. However, in any other criminal case that law enforcement works, we're able to have anonymous people as well, but we know who to contact. We just don't release that information to the public. If that could change, that would definitely help us on the front end of investigations, and sometimes be able to make a case where if you don't have that information, you don't know who to talk to, and the information is dead on the vine, and you can't make a case. So that is one thing that is very important to law enforcement. And I wanted to speak on some of the good things that we're doing in Livingston Parish to help make sure that none of the investigations on child abuse doesn't fall through the cracks and nobody is overlooked. I'm sure every jurisdiction has the multidisciplinary team meetings. In Livingston Parish, we take that very serious. We meet once a month, and we go through each case. Our partners, our law enforcement partners, DCFS is there. The medical providers, if they can't be there, they Zoom in. The care center's there, and our district attorney's office is there. And, you know, just like you said earlier, you know, everything's on a computer now, but technology is good, but if you don't read that email or you don't send that email, what good is it? But if you put people in a seat and you have to look across from them, you have a sense of accountability there, right? And that's what we have. And if I'm sitting in that room and I ask about a case and DCFS is there, they have to look at me and answer that question, just like the CAC people. And if they have a question for us, we have to answer that question as well. And it's accountability across the board, and it has worked. And we've seen progress because at the sheriff's office, we make it mandatory that our people have to be there. And that has helped change the way that our investigations are made. And you know, you have everything from the CAC people to the district attorney. And if you're working a case and the DCFS person may have some information, law enforcement may have information, and then you're able to ask the district attorney that's in the room, hey, what do we need to do next? What's the next step? What can we do to protect this kid? And you have all the answers in the room. You know what I'm saying? So that has helped, and that helps us make sure that no kid is overlooked. And I mean, to know that you're there and all those providers are there, and even to the point where the child is, make sure they get counseling if they need be, you know. So that is something that's worked in Livingston Parish for us, and we take it serious. And I think if other agencies would take it as serious as we would, it would fill in those gaps and make sure that no kid falls through the cracks, and it'd make it better across the board for all the agencies and for the kids in the state of Louisiana.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it, and I can tell you, I know your sheriff, and he and I have had conversations, and I have seen just the commitment, the intensity to really evaluating and looking at this issue throughout the last couple of years, and I truly appreciate it. I was going to wait to hear from my parish first, because in hearing some of the testimonies that we've gotten, it's not the same level of continuity across the state, and that is where I think we have a lot of the issues. But before y'all begin to even delve into that, I just want to say that because over and over, you know, we have departments, we have some parts of this state that are doing a great job. I know Ascension is not represented here, but I've heard about the work that they're doing. But then we have some areas where there's just seem like different silos, right? And it's not rising to the attention that it needs to, and that is problematic. But let me hear from EBR, because I know what EBR is doing as well, and we certainly do appreciate you, and thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me. My name is Don Dortez. I'm a captain in the Special Investigations Division with East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office. I've been with the office for 35 years, and I've taken over this Special Investigations Division. Dr. Hook and I have been on several committees together, and it's a pleasure to work with her along with CAC and DCFS here in East Baton Rouge Parish, because, as he said, we all work together. And coming together, knowing each other. I was able to walk in the room, see Dr. Hook, and see Michelle Shelton, and knowing them from previous employments, it makes it work better. From the intake standpoint on the joint investigations between DCFS and local law enforcement, and I can only talk about East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office, The intakes, what we're seeing is an influx in intakes from DCFS. This year, starting in January till Friday, we've received 679 intakes from DCFS. Of those, only the sheriff's office has handled 115. So the rest go to either Baton Rouge City, Zachary, or Baker. Of those 115, we investigate, provide them to our Uniform Patrol Division for a welfare check, just like y'all talked about earlier, or some type of sexual abuse or child abuse. Of those child abuse or sexual abuse cases, we've handled 28 within the Sheriff's Office Division. That's 3% of the 600 that we received. We're receiving those intakes, and in those intakes there's a lot of non-information. They're getting the intakes in, but they're not getting the pertinent information that we need from a law enforcement standpoint to continue the investigation. So DCFS says it's not good enough for DCFS, we're going to turn it over to law enforcement, they turn it over to us, and it's a parenting issue, or it's something that's not law enforcement side. Only 28 of the 679 that we investigated from a sexual or child abuse standpoint. So that's a hole that I see that we could be falling through the cracks in those joint investigations. But like the captain said, on the good side, we have good relationships with DCFS. They can call us and they can say, hey, look into this one a little bit further. Or we can call them with the same thing, look into this one a little bit further, and they do. And it works the same way. And just like the captain said, we enjoy working with our counterparts, CAC, DCFS. We have to communicate, and that's what makes it work, communications.
Okay, so can you guys just kind of speak to, because I see how you are addressing it and how you guys have created a system in terms of making it a priority, having the relationships, knowing who to call, etc. We have parts of the state where this is falling through the cracks, and that then kind of causes a lot of concerns for us. And I just want to ask you guys if you have some recommendations, suggestions. I know that I don't see Monica here, who normally represents the training with law enforcement. But is there some things that you guys could recommend, or things that you would suggest that we can do as it relates to law enforcement that could help them help us in terms of making this a priority?
I think it starts at the top. It's got to start at the top leadership, those who can make decisions for the organizations, those who can tell their people, hey, we really need you to get involved in this, and that's where it starts. We have one, I've been involved with Dr. Hook for at least 2 years now, where we do meetings once a month, or we used to do meetings once a month, where we found out there was a child that may have fell through the cracks, and then we review those cases. So, and it's sad to say, but that's what it takes sometimes. Those one cases that fall through the cracks in these smaller parishes, and they go, oh, maybe we need to get up to the system that they have in the larger cities.
I mean, I know the resources are limited, right? And so Thibodaux's is small, right?
Yeah, but everything that they mentioned is exactly what we do. And especially if there is no criminal charges or a criminal aspect to it, we still refer families for family needed services, especially when it comes down to younger juveniles that are too young for a medical diagnosis for certain mental disorders. A lot of times a family gets that situation, and we're able to work with our DA's office to refer the family for family news services to actually get the parents help to try to kind of, I guess I say it is, go around the doctors not wanting to help them. But no, there's a lot of, I know for us and the areas around us, everybody has an MDT, they do their meetings. It's helped us too. There's times to where I attend other MDTs in other areas and vice versa. Kind of gives us a different aspect and a different way of looking at how they do things, how we do. And even with doing that, there's been times where we've come across that we're working a similar case in both areas with the same family, or worked one years before. So I definitely think having people reach out to one another, and it also helps too, understanding everybody's policies and procedures on stuff. Because some things that other people can do, we can't as law enforcement, and we can only push, like, we only have the law to go by. Like, we can't go by certain things the way some of the other agencies or entities do, so.
Thank you. Ms. Moody.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I have a question about cases where it may be one parent making allegations against the other parent. We hear a lot of testimony about family court and law enforcement being involved in that. What's the criteria when a law enforcement officer would go and investigate a case where it may be an allegation, like I said, one parent's making against the other? Is there standardized sort of criteria, or is it just based on the case, or how do you respond to that?
I know in Livingston Parish, if there's a complaint, whether it be one parent accusing another parent, it has to be investigated thoroughly, no matter what the basis are.
Yeah, we do the same thing. But I also talk with the families and let them know that filing false reports, even to DCFS, is a crime. It's listed on their website. So I do give warnings to families if it's a obvious, like, parental trying to manipulate the system. I do give warnings, and then we kind of go from there. And I still explain to them, like, if there's a concern for safety, definitely file a report. But I mean, unfortunately, if we don't at least explain to them, there's a chance of them receiving some kind of punishment for manipulating the system, either it being DCFS or law enforcement. But
is there any kind of training that law enforcement undergoes to be able to make those determinations of whether it is a manipulation tactic versus an adequate allegation of abuse? Or is it just kind of based on the personal interaction?
they have quite a few different like programs. I go to the Children's Advocacy Center in Dallas for the conference. Sorry. I've attended several infant and child death investigations. There's a lot of different trainings when it comes down to like child abuse, to help you kind of look and see different things. And then a lot of times when it is a family member that's manipulating it, it's very obvious, and it's very obvious. But if there is any concerns on if it's a possibility that there might be some issues going on, we still speak with it in our MDT, and then if we need to, we'll still refer the case once it's approved. We'll refer it to the DA's office for like a second overlook just to make sure. But
also, if it's appears to be a custody issue or something like that, unfortunately, where they put the kids in the middle of it, you had the initial investigation, what the allegations are, and then we try to get if there's any court minutes or anything, because sometimes they may tell law enforcement one thing and then get in there and tell the judge something completely different. So if you have that discrepancy, you can bring them back in and ask them, okay, so why did you say this, but you told us this, you know? A lot of times we have seen where that we have been able to get to the bottom of it with getting to the facts that the child was being coached by one parent based on the information that we got from the initial complaint and what was told in court. And then, you know, whenever it's apples and oranges and it's not right, then, you know, a lot of times they come forward and say, yes, that's not what really happened.
In a lot of these situations, it's the totality of the whole thing. I mean, it's CAC, you're getting their interview, you might get a medical interview, you'll get several different interviews. So it's not just law enforcement, it shouldn't be just law enforcement making that decision on if there is some type of abuse. We've got all the different entities that are involved. The MDTs also help because sometimes when we get the MDTs, the ADAs will be there and they'll give us a different direction to go in. So in those situations, I think it's the totality of the whole situation to see when you have one side saying one thing and another side saying another thing and you have no physical evidence to point us to some type of abuse.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to follow up. So when you guys find that one of the parents have embellished their story, what happens to them?
It's a misdemeanor charge.
Are they charged so they can see the severity?
If we seek the advice of the district attorney, and based on that, if it doesn't interfere with any other litigation that's going on, then we would.
Okay. Because there's been, many individuals who say that is happening. Sometimes I just think it's a matter of how people interpret things too as well. And you guys are able to see through that
Right.
as well, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. Hadley.
Hello. I love that you guys are here because I'm from Northwest Louisiana, so it feels like it's two different worlds in Louisiana. And I love getting perspectives because I work with law enforcement in the CAC Center, and I love that you make it mandatory for them to attend an MDT because we can facilitate it all day, but if no one shows up, it doesn't work. So I love that, and kudos to you on that. The question I have for you guys, just to kind of get insight to what we could potentially even bring back to Northwest Louisiana. I know with communication between law enforcement and DCFS, that can always be a challenge, whether in the timing of reporting to each other, whether DCFS gets it first or law enforcement gets it first. What is y'all's policy in y'all's jurisdiction to when you receive a case that DCFS is not involved in yet, that I guess what criteria, what do you look for to connect them and get them involved, and what is y'all's timeline like to connect to DCFS?
In Livingston Parish, what we do is if we get a case that's outside where DCFS is not involved, we contact them on the front end. And even though, DCFS, law enforcement, we are partners. However, we're going to seek out the investigation to the end because there may be times that DCFS may not validate a claim. However, the law enforcement investigation is not going to stop just because of that. We're going to see it to the end. And I know that there's some agencies, if DCFS gives doesn't validate, they don't look at it any further. But I think if you don't do that, you're doing injustice. You got to see it to the end.
That's good.
On our end, it's an immediate notification through the hotline or through the email or a phone call, because we're lucky here in Baton Rouge. We can call them because we all know each other. And then, because it's a different investigation on their part, but it's a joint investigation between the two agencies. So they may veer one way, we may veer the other way, but at some point, we're going to come back and communicate and try to make it right, see what the problem is, see if there's an arrest, or see if the child needs to. The safe plan is the most important thing from Jump Street. From the minute we get the investigation, we have to have a safe plan working with DCFS on what we're going to do with the child.
Regardless of the allegation, it's immediate.
Absolutely.
If there's a child victim involved or a witness to violent crimes like domestic violence or homicide, are they being immediately contacted, DCFS as well, in those circumstances?
Yes.
Yes.
So I know that you mentioned that you guys meet monthly. How often do you guys meet?
Meet monthly, yes.
And so everybody's at the table
We meet twice a month sometimes.
twice a month?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so and everybody's always at the table?
Yes, ma'am.
And so it's required. So I like that too, because it's easy to ensure that there's follow through. Because you can always ask the question to see kind of like where this case is, where that case is.
I attend too, just to make sure that everybody's there, so.
Me too.
It works out.
Okay, all right, and that's good to know. That's what we need. Were you finished? I'm sorry.
I mean, I had a question, but I don't remember it anymore.
I'm sorry.
No,
okay. Well, yeah, press your button and we'll come back to you. Okay. And to our DA, who I do not take for granted in being here, we thank you so very much. Honorable Russell.
I wanted to comment more than ask a question. You ask what we need, and you have 3 different jurisdictions. Lafourche has 98,000 people. Obviously, Livingston and East Baton Rouge is larger. What works is advocacy centers and MDTs. That's what works. We have 14 in the state. I prosecuted sex crimes for 15 years. I prosecuted before advocacy centers existed, and I prosecuted after advocacy centers came in existence, and kind of helps that I'm the director of the one that we have in Lafourche. But our MOUs that we have in place with all of our agencies require them to show up. And if they don't show up, then your director or whoever is in your advocacy center makes the phone calls to the head of that agency and says, why isn't your department here? But what works is your advocacy centers. We only have 14, but you're looking at 3 different places. Y'all didn't talk before y'all came, and y'all all are saying the exact same thing. We meet once a month. Everyone sits at the table. Everyone speaks and communicates. So we're not dropping the ball when it comes to our children. We're making sure services are there. I can tell you before we had centers, it was very difficult to prosecute because we had a lack of communication. Once you have your center, we all are forced to sit there. People show up because if not, they're getting a phone call to say, why isn't your detective there? Why isn't DCFS present at the table? And we have them accountable, and that's what our MOUs are about. But if we're looking at what works, MDTs work. And advocacy centers are your only place that are neutral and have they have nothing to gain in it. They're just there to bring everybody together to talk about our children. Everybody else, they have a bit different end game, whether it's closing their case, whether it's prosecution, whether it's providing services, but everybody else there has something, except that advocacy center. They're only there to bring everybody to the table. If you're asking what we need more centers. And the centers that are not working, then whoever's in charge of it needs to look at your MOUs and start making your phone calls, or why aren't people at the table? Because again, thank you all for being here. Kendra, your passion is why I wanted you here. But what you all have proven us on this task force is MDTs work. And it didn't matter where you came from, when you bring them to the table, all of you are saying from law enforcement, it works. And that is what we need.
I think that sums it up very nicely. I see Ms. Shelton has a question.
Yes, just a couple questions. Mr. D'Artes, you mentioned that a lot of the intakes you just couldn't move on because there wasn't enough information. Is there a training that could help with that, or is it simply that the caller isn't giving enough information to the department?
It's probably both.
Okay.
But the call taker could probably go to some type of communication training where some of the intakes, they give no name. They just say it's a 3-year-old walking the street, and which street is it? I don't remember. And then they send that to us. So it's the state of Louisiana. How do we find out where that's at? How do we get more information? So yeah, I think training would be a big part of it.
Okay, and is that similarly for everyone, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, especially knowing the area, because I used to get referrals for Lafourche Parish, which is not my jurisdiction, and I'd have to we'd play phone tag with everybody trying to make sure they actually got a hold of the correct one. So I would work on that too.
Okay. Well, this Quick Connect, were you guys aware? I know you said you weren't. Were you guys aware of Quick Connect before today? Okay, maybe that is something that will be helpful. And my last question was for all 3 of you. We've mentioned that in an investigation you will identify if there's manipulation by one of the parents or if there's coaching by a parent of a child. Does law enforcement rely on the CAC to make those type of determinations, or is that something you guys receive special training for, or how does that work?
On our side, it would be the CAC and/or medical staff, because in some of the cases that I've been involved with at the Aubrey Hepburn Center, when they send the child there, the medical facility would tell us, or the physician would tell us, yeah, the child's been coached, because the child doesn't use medical terms to talk about private parts. They're, a 2 or 3-year-old doesn't use medical terms to say private parts. So yeah, it wouldn't be just law enforcement. It would be, like I said earlier, the totality of the situation where everybody would be collaborating to give the information.
And then it also goes with your research. So I do work where when we refer children to a therapist, or if we know that they're already in therapy, we can also try to work out a way of getting those records and stuff as well, because a lot of time the kids do explain a lot of things to their therapist. And it allows us to kind of go around the kid without putting them in the parent's pathway once the parent finds out and gets angry, so.
And those are the hardest cases, you know, those are the cases where the kids are caught in the middle, and they're the ones that end up suffering the most.
Yeah.
Those are definitely the cases that keep you up at night.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. Ms. Hadley, I'm glad you remembered.
I remember my question, but I also wanted to add to that last question. With the CACs, I mean, with the collaboration, it does help, but as a CAC, we're neutral, so we can't provide anything necessarily concrete to what, if it is manipulation or if it is coaching. We can all just give our opinion based on our observations in that forensic interview, because our only encounter is that child in that moment. We don't know the outside environmental dynamics, like they might when they go to a home, or what DCFS will observe in the home. We don't know what happens in the schools. That's where their investigations play into effect. But all that we can do in that forensic interview is provide insight, those nonverbal cues, how they respond to certain statements with their body language. What words are they using throughout that forensic interview to help us see, like, when we spoke with mom before that interview, or that caregiver before that interview, that she used the same language that this child was using. So we kind of look at development as a whole to also determine, like, this 4-year-old said such a very vast, large language that wouldn't really happen to a 4-year-old development, and that language was similar to that of the caregiver. We can point that out, but that we will never say concretely that manipulation or coaching, because it's hard to say that, but we will, as forensic interviews, it is our duty and our professionalism to bring that to light in the collaboration, to kind of keep everyone accountable and to make sure we stay victim-centered and for just the whole safety of the child.
That's definitely why MDTs are fantastic, because we can actually all sit down and speak about it and kind of go from there. But you'd be surprised at how many parents actually record themselves coaching their kid. So sometimes there's a lot right there saying absolutely, so.
Okay, and as far as my question that I remembered, one of you made the comment about that you will talk to your DA's office before making an arrest. Does that go with every case involving a juvenile? Like, for any sex crimes cases, do y'all initially reach out to your DA first before you make an arrest, or is that just circumstantial case by case?
For us, it's case by case.
What determines then for you guys to reach out to your DA to ask, like, is there enough, like, a lot of time I hear from our jurisdiction, like, they do a DA review and they'll send their case file to the DA, or they'll talk to the DA and collaborate with them to determine, is there enough to make an arrest? Do y'all normally do that when y'all are still on the fence if there should be an arrest made, or what does that look like?
Sometimes that helps in the MDT. The MDT provides that for us. Because if we don't have enough probable cause for an arrest, and we provide all the information to the MDT, and an ADA is there, they can say, hey, did you look at this? Did you go this way? And it may move us towards more probable cause. But that would be the position.
Whenever I had said that we seek the advice of the ADA to an arrest, usually that is dealing with the false statement. If a parent was coaching another, coaching the child or whatever, we would because putting one parent in jail, you don't want to jeopardize if there's something else going on there. So you want to get their professional opinion on that, for sure.
Thank you, guys.
Could I clarify?
Sure. Captain Patu?
Yeah, just to add specifically.
I'm trying to hold up. There we go.
Do any of your agencies have anything that prohibit you from submitting a report to the DA's office when an arrest has not been made in order to look at further at the investigation?
My agency doesn't. No.
Does not prohibit?
No.
Okay.
No.
We didn't. No. And ma'am, you said no also?
I normally send it to them anyways, just to make sure, so, but Yeah, and they never had any issues with any of the.
Is that across the state or is that?
Hold on. I think we're all on.
I was just, is that across the state or is that just jurisdiction by jurisdiction, what policy or procedures they have?
I'm guessing it's just agency by agency, but was just
believe so,
curious as
yeah.
to who was here, as to how their agencies feel. But I've heard of some agencies against that, and which is
Which
unusual to.
Right, because I would love to understand that more, because as much as we can provide that in an MDT, I also don't want our MDT members to think that a DA review that's it, as far as communication, that we need to expand more, but also where, like, do we have the accountability to make sure that they're doing their due diligence in their investigations?
I think with having a DA in the MDT process helps, with some of that also, because at least that input can be brought to that MDT at that time.
And I know for us in the past, if there was ever, even if we staff it in MDT, they still say, like, once you finish all this stuff, if there's still nothing, type it up, send it to me anyways. And ours have requested for us to still send it so they can review it by reading everything you have, because talking about something, you normally either leave out or miss things that you don't think it's important, but they do. So they've requested for us to just send it.
Right. I guess the dynamic I come across is with some of our jurisdictions, they can talk to their DA, like they have them like on call, like they can call them anytime at any moment. And during their investigation, and a lot of time they submit it in. So by the time we do review for MDT, they felt like they've communicated all that they could with their DA's office.
I would suggest, though, that conversation with the district attorney's office and your advocacy center about how that should look. We encourage, oftentimes your MDT lasts 1 hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. And so you're covering many cases. So
Right.
if we always say, if you feel as though you don't have enough and you want us to still take a look at it, send it for DA review. Oftentimes they'll send it they want that second glance to make sure they haven't missed anything. Like, we've done everything, we don't think we have probable cause. Can you just give it a second glance to make sure we're all on the same page? So we encourage that to work together, and if there's something that maybe we feel they missed. I don't know any offices that don't allow that, but if you're seeing that conversation's before the MDT, and that's certainly not advantageous to everybody at the table, I would certainly have a conversation with the district attorney's office to say, we still need to wait to staffing so everyone can hear the information and have a dialogue.
For sure. So DAs, make it sure that you attend the MDT meetings.
Well, and we have a meeting next week, and actually I'm putting it in on the agenda to talk about the importance of those jurisdictions that do have advocacy centers. Our presence is crucial to be there. And so
It really is.
we will be having that conversation.
I think this is a great question that leads into a comment, and maybe you guys may want to, ladies, may want to or may not want to respond, because one of the things that have consistently come up, first of all, there's no continuity, I think, in the level of the MDT. That's number one, because I've heard that multiple times. Then I've also heard allegation of like maybe coercion or biases, especially when you're in small rural area of the state, in terms of what happens in those situations, and that's something that I don't know if you guys want to really respond to, but we need to create. There needs to be some level of level playing field or a level ground, that when these cases are before, that we know that all of them are being looked at the same way, and I've heard it multiple times from different areas of the state, mostly rural though, where you've had some level of coercion or a level of bias, or things were overlooked, not looked at because someone knew somebody else. And you guys may be familiar to some degree with some of those, or have heard your own self. But we need to create something, and I'm looking for what that could look like in terms of something across the board. Representative Edmiston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to ask each of you a question just out of curiosity. As far as manipulation and coaching, would you say the majority of the cases that you are familiar with either of the, this is probably in a parental situation, either the parents is coaching or not. Do you understand what I'm asking you?
Can you repeat
Okay.
one more?
Yeah. You did really well. Go ahead and answer. I mean, in other words, is coaching and manipulation a real issue?
It depends on the case.
Okay, that's what I want to know. Is it something that you can say, yes, this is more of, or yes, this is less of? Because in my experience, and I worked for a school system for 22 years, and I'm old, I've been around a long time. I guess I don't see the coaching and manipulation as an issue like sometimes I hear people talking, not you. And so I'm just asking while you're at the table if you can just kind of give me your opinion on that.
I know for us, it's not as often as other cases. It's not, for the most part, most parents in our area that file a concerned report about their child, there's something there.
Right.
I don't have very often the parents manipulating each other.
Okay.
And when it's evident that that's what's going on, it's very
Obvious.
like, yes.
Mm.
So, but I know for me personally, for my area, like we don't have them often, but they're the ones that you're definitely going to keep remembering more because of how they turn out and the process the whole entire time. But
I appreciate that. That's a good answer. Thank you.
I would say in the cases that we work dealing with allegations and there's a custody component with it.
Right.
I think for as coaching is probably less than 2%.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, sir?
Yeah, I would say the same thing, less
Okay.
than 2%.
Okay.
They're the loudest, though. They're
Oh,
the
yeah.
ones that keep coming back and coming back and coming back.
That's a clue right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They want to know, is there arrest before the court date? Is there going to be arrest
Gotcha.
before the court date? That
Yeah.
throws up a red flag.
Yes.
You know, instead of looking for the concern of the kid itself.
Absolutely.
You know?
And that's what I'm wondering. I mean, you would think, you would hope that parents in general, if they raise those concerns, they're legitimate, and they wouldn't go through all of the process of coaching and manipulating their child. I mean, you know, I've said that before. I just have a real issue with that. Not saying it doesn't happen.
Right.
But it can't be the majority of the time. Okay. Thank you
not.
so much.
I'm
Thank
glad you
for
brought that up.
indulging me.
Yeah, but I'm glad you brought it up because it seemed like we kept hearing like that was a prevalent issue. Yeah, and that was happening a lot. Thank you so very much. I don't see any additional questions before us for any of you. I do want to thank y'all for taking our time out of your busy schedules to be here today to answer these questions, to provide the insight that we are looking for so that we can actually strengthen the system. If anything comes up after you guys leave here, and ladies leave here, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll be looking at crafting legislation between now and January because session starts early. So we start in March, and so we have to start filing in February. But we want to start putting together our packet, and we're taking all of this information down. We have a great staff who have really been helping us, taking all the great notes, keeping things in line so that we can look at those things that have been most pressing so that we can begin to make the legislative change. But if there's anything that arises or anything else that you think of that you forgot to mention, please let us know. And again, we thank you for the great work that you're doing. We wish we could replicate you guys throughout the state. Did I just say that? But we thank you. And ladies, I just say that as a general because I'm just so happy that you're here. So you're kind of used to that, right? But thank you so very much. Thank each of you for your level of compassion and commitment to this issue. So
Thank each one of y'all for what y'all do for protecting our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we have a great task force. So We are going to stop. I was hoping to get y'all to lunch a little earlier than this. I do apologize. Lunch is next door. We are going to pause for about maybe 20 to 30 minutes. So for those of you who want to run out and grab something to eat right quick, please do. We still have the CACs to come before us, and then public testimony. Before we recess, let me just do this as a reminder. For public testimony, while we welcome public testimony, I want to remind everyone that we do not want to have any testimony that identifies a child victim or provides any public graphic details of alleged abuse. We do not want testimony that defame or disparage any individual's name or any parties, members of the judiciary, DCFS, etc. We have stated repeatedly that we are not triers of fact in personal litigation matters, but are focused on the processes used by DCFS, law enforcement, and the judiciary in investigating of child abuse cases. So I would probably reread this again when we come back, but we're going to take a brief recess. Lunch is next door. I know that one of you guys have to leave, but please take your lunch with you if you have to. Thank you. And we will come back at 1:40.